Call the regular city commission meeting of Tuesday, March 15th, 2016 to order. May we stand for the pledge of allegiance. Put your head. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amy, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Foreman?
Here.
Commissioner Krzyjak?
Here.
Commissioner Perry?
Here.
Commissioner Scott?
Here.
Mayor Metzger?
Here. Okay, the first item, public discussion, items not on the agenda. Please step forward. Name and address, please.
Leslie Jones, 19 Fairwood, Environmental Committee. Just a reminder, we have our event coming up on Monday with Dr. Tom Kosarek from Wayne State, researcher and associate professor of environmental science. We'll be talking about the effects of pesticides on health and the environment. And then, not to be all doom and gloom about it, we're going to have Melissa Sargent from the Ecology Center who will talk about ways that you can still have a great yard and a beautiful yard without using pesticides. So that's at 7 p.m. for Ridge. We hope everybody can attend. It's free. And there'll be refreshments, so there you go.
Even better.
So, all right, thank you.
If I could.
Oh, sure.
Thank you for putting on this presentation. One thing that we have on the agenda tonight is stormwater, discussion about treatment of stormwater charges. And one thing, getting into some of the nuts and bolts on stormwater, a lot of these treatment facilities I've learned, a big difficulty is dealing with some of the runoff from
sure.
these highly toxic pesticides, and it actually drives up the cost of what will be the homeowners in the community will eventually be paying for stormwater treatment. So even if you don't use these substances, but your neighbors do, or a combination throughout the community, it still affects all of us. So I really applaud your group for raising awareness on this issue, because I do think it is something that affects everyone.
Thank you. It affects like health, like you said, but it also it's a big problem now with pollinators, especially neonicotinoids, which some places are beginning to phase out, and some communities are beginning to phase out. So it's an important topic. So it should be good. We've got a couple really good speakers, so hope you guys can come.
And for a city with a lot of dogs.
Yeah, and it really
It's really
affects
walking
pets
dogs.
and children, and you bring it in on your feet, and then it's on your carpet, and so it's important. So, all right,
Well,
thank you.
We don't have one of Ted's wonderful tips.
No TED Talk tonight.
That's a shame.
Ted's a Bible study.
Fred Seddon, 29 Fairwood. And I've noticed the city's a little bit concerned about carbon dioxide, carbon footprint. So I thought I'd just address a little on it. And I took a cursory look at the city's energy output, and I tried to figure out what would be the biggest energy usage the city would use. It was obvious to me it's heating the pool. There's nothing else that the city really uses that would come close to that. And it comes up real close right here, another couple months. Without heating the pool, you wouldn't be able to use it for half the summer. So it's a necessary thing to get the utmost use out of it. So I took a little look at it, and the pool is 250,000 gallons, and that's basically 2 million pounds of water. And I picked some numbers. Figure it's 40 degrees to start at the end of the winter, raise it up to 80 degrees. So basically you'd have to add 40 BTUs per pound. 1 BTU will raise 1 pound, 1 degree Fahrenheit. So it's simple arithmetic. 2 million pounds, raising it up to 80 degrees, would give you 80 million BTUs, right? One other thing you have to take into consideration is efficiency. All of your heat does not go into the pool. So I picked 60%. That's a good one for just a boiler. So you'd end up with basically 133 million BTUs to raise the pool 40 degrees to make it usable June 1st. If you took that amount of natural gas, you would end up with 117 pounds of carbon dioxide per million BTUs. And that would shake out to about 15,500 pounds of carbon dioxide, or approximately 8 tons of carbon dioxide generated from heating the pool. It seems like an awful lot. And I took a look at probably the second biggest usage of carbon dioxide, which I figured would be streetlights. But I had no idea how many streetlights we have, what the wattage is, or anything like that. So I took a guess. 100 streetlights, 300 watts a light. Close, maybe?
What are they now that they're LED?
Well, I just took a guess.
Do you want me to answer that? Sure. We have about 195 streetlights.
Well,
total
so I'm
in town.
half.
And with the LED lights now, I believe they're an output of 65 watts.
Oh, so I'm high. That's even better. So what I came up with was about 3.5 tons of carbon dioxide, but it would actually be way lower than that. So my first guess was correct. Heating the pool would be actually the biggest expense of carbon dioxide that the city would put out. But I found a much larger source of carbon dioxide in the city, orders of magnitude. And the arithmetic is simple. 2,500 people, kilogram per day, times 1 year will give you 2 million pounds of carbon dioxide. Just people breathing, which is 1,000 tons. So, just to take a look at it. And I don't think Pleasant Ridge, and that far overshadows anything that the city puts out. Just people breathing. And I don't think we're an outlier here either, because I looked at Royal Oak, 57,000 people. It would work out to 45 million pounds of carbon dioxide, which is basically 23,000 tons. Now, if you go backwards for that, take the carbon dioxide and turn it into energy, that would be 390 billion BTUs. Now that, you could just about start heating the streets and forget about snow plowing. Or 114 million kilowatt hours of electricity. So I think, in most all cities, the people are going to emit more carbon dioxide than what the city will. So this is a little bit on carbon dioxide. And the other thing is it's directly related to energy. And the big thing now is green energy. So I want to talk just a little bit. The reason I brought up the green energy is I looked in the Woodward Talk about 2 or 3 months ago, and I saw the zoo was addressing green energy. And I thought, oh great, I'll go over and take a look at it and see what they're doing. But I read a little farther and they go, well, they're buying green energy credits. I think, well, what is a green energy credit? Where does it come from? No idea. Okay. So, some of the green energy that you can look at, solar or hydroelectric or wind. And with solar, you can only get 300 BTUs per hour per square foot. And it's the maximum you'll ever get. You have to look at efficiency and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm going a little over, so I did bring a bunch of stuff, and in a nice world, I would have had a CD for everybody, but I went to burn CDs and I ended up with coasters real fast, so
We'll take flash one.
I'll give
Just giving us money.
I give a flash drive.
Money's good. Oh, good.
I have
Hey.
for the mayor, I've got 5 papers on there
Okay.
to relate to that and 3 videos. And I can't really, the videos are good, the papers are good. If you even take a cursory look at them, you'll get a lot better understanding of carbon dioxide and energy.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you.
Any other items for public discussion? Okay. then we'll move- Oh, there it is.
Sean Campbell, SEAN, 58 Sylvan. I just want to use the public forum to reiterate my concerns with the neighborhood compatibility standards that I expressed in the city survey. One was that I think the new adopted standards are more objective than the previous ones, but I think they're still subjective. I think walking around the city, I think there's a lot of homes that if they were built tomorrow using those standards, as is, I don't know that they would pass them. And it felt like a level of sort of local government overreach that I thought when I moved to Pleasant Ridge we weren't going to have. I don't know that it's a slippery slope that we move into restrictive covenants about the types of fences and whether you can have fences and the color you can paint your house, but it felt very much like that. And the diversity of homes and their sizes and their construction was something that I've always found attractive about Pleasant Ridge and Ferndale. And it was sort of disappointing that I felt like we were taking a step away from that because of the number of homes that didn't meet whatever the traditional style of architecture means. So I wanted to express in the public forum the concerns that I had sort of done privately in the city survey. Thanks.
Yes.
Question?
Yeah.
Is your concern that the level of diversity that exists today in housing cannot be maintained?
No, I think I understand that based on it's for new construction and it's for renovations over 25% of the total area. But I think it sends a message that I didn't think was the type of message that our city would send to people who want to build new homes, which is here's all these things these subjective things that we think are pretty, and that if you don't think that they're pretty too, then unless you go through a process and we say that the standards don't apply to you because you're modern or whatever the other categories that were listed in the standard were. It was more about not that we're going to be able to maintain it or not that it ruins what's already here. To me, it was more of the message that we're sending as a community that we don't it felt like we don't appreciate the diversity that we have because some of a significant. I mean, walking over here, I think the standards would be the exception, not the rule, for anything on my street east of Indiana. So that I think all of those homes they're different in their own way, and that's okay, and that I don't think that we get to a slippery slope where we start, like I said, telling people what color they can paint their house, but it definitely felt in the realm of that same level of overreach about what people can do with their property.
Thank you.
And I guess I'd like to address it, having been on the planning commission where we had the public hearing and then on the city commission. I feel the design standards are very much about, the exterior design standards are about the quality of materials and the quality of construction, not getting into the design. And it's not at all dictating the design style for homes. It's just trying to make sure that renovations and homes that are being built in the quality standards that are the historic standard for Pleasant Ridge. And it doesn't, we don't care. I mean, it's not trying to dictate if it's modern, if it's a bungalow, if it's colonial. It just talks about quality. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Any other items? All right. Let's move to the next section, governmental reports. Police chief defer to you.
Wow.
Okay.
You can all discuss what that might mean.
Right, exactly. And get one of those get out of jail free cards from him.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to see everyone, Mayor and Commissioners. So just coming in, check in. I know it has been a little bit of time, but not interested. Okay, I was gonna say not interested. Yeah, I have flyers if you want.
Clear room.
So yeah, exactly. That happens. Politician gets up in front of a microphone. People just want to walk away.
They're going home to look at elections.
I'm used to it. I'm used to it. So just want to come check in, say hello. Also follow up if everyone in their Woodward talk we sent out a. Hopefully this was helpful. Has a lot of good information in here. If people at home, I'll leave some extra copies here in case people want to come grab them. If they're like my mom who recycled it and didn't even realize it was in the Woodward talk. But hopefully people got this because there's a lot of good information in here and some upcoming events. Our next coffee hour actually is here in Pleasant Ridge on Monday, April 4th from 10:30 to noon at the community center. And then the following day, Tuesday, April 5th, at the Huntington Woods Parks and Rec Center at from 6:30 to 8. And again, we try to do one in the day, one in the evening, so that people, depending on their work schedules, are able to make it. Also, want to talk about a town hall that we're hosting, which I think is it will be a really good event for people to attend on income and tax inequality here in Michigan. And I'm going to talk about the graduated income tax proposal that I've been working on with my colleague, the rep from Royal Oak, and also Charles Ballard, who's a professor at Michigan State, is coming to speak as well. So it should be a good event. Again, it's at Ferndale High School, Thursday, April 14th at 7 o'clock, and would love for everyone to attend. And just to give you kind of just a brief update, and then I can answer any questions that anyone has, of what's going on in Lansing. Obviously the budget is the main thing that we're going to be working on here. And I don't sit on any of the appropriation committees, so I'm kind of hearing things as they're kind of moving along. We saw the governor's proposed budget, which is more or less just a list of wishes. It has to still go through the legislative process. So I'll keep you kind of apprised as that does go on. And encourage you to check on my website as well, because we will post as things go along. Obviously, what's going on with DPS, I know is a concern to a lot of people. It should be to everyone. It's obviously really sad what's going on there. The fact that they could possibly cut school short this year would just be tragic. These kids, we want them all to have a first-class education. We want them to have a free public education here in the state of Michigan. It's in our Constitution, and just because the state hasn't done so well overseeing the district doesn't mean we should stop school for these kids. We got to do what we can. But I know I saw Superintendent Pruitt here as well. One thing, and I've talked to Superintendent Pruitt and some of the other superintendents of the district, that I won't support anything that's going to harm kids in other districts. You can't take from one to give to the others. We have to do something that's equitable and helps everyone in all the students here in the state of Michigan. So that's something obviously I will be cognizant of and working with the superintendents on that to make sure, because we have a lot of I represent the districts right along the border here. The Oak Park schools, Ferndale schools, Hazel Park schools, Berkeley schools, all along here. So that's something obviously I'll keep you apprised of what's going on with that as well. And then I guess just something I've been doing this month. March is reading month, and this is actually one of my favorite times of the year because I have a lot of fun reading to the students. I've already been to, I think, 7 or 8 elementary schools throughout the district, and will continue as the month goes on to hopefully make it to all of them. And so I tell people at home, and I let superintendents and principals know, not even only during the month of March, throughout the year, if they ever want me to come read to the students, speak to government class, whatever it is, I'm always happy to do that. It's definitely one of the best parts of the job, especially with the little ones, with all the questions they ask. They keep me on my toes, that's for sure. I don't know what they're going to ask. So that's just a brief update, and I'll give you my contact information, which I do always just to make sure if anyone here or at home has any issues, questions, concerns, always reach out to me. Also, if you're, how you feel on certain issues, certain bills that will be coming across our, through the House. Email me. It's Robert Wittenberg at house.mi.gov. Phone number, I always try to remember this, and it's not like it used to be, 517-373-0478. So if anyone ever needs anything, again, please reach out to me. So with that, I just want to be brief, and I'll answer any questions or listen to any thoughts that you have.
Is the legislature going to pass the $50 million?
I,
Isn't even.
I don't know that because so now there's concerns.
They let DPS finish out the year.
Oh.
Right. So yeah. Right. So that's what they're doing because they say I think April 8th I think is the last time they can pay the teachers, and then I don't know if it would shut weeks after that.
Rhodes
You know.
said he wouldn't let them.
Right. He wouldn't let them, which I understand. But we let's not cross that bridge. I mean, I don't want to. But from what I've also heard people mention that if this does go through, some of the concerns are that they're obviously kicking the can down the road, and then nothing will get done if they do this, or people will think this was the solution that we needed. I don't know, to be honest with you. I haven't heard. Those bills haven't come up for us yet. I think, and they haven't. To be honest with you, they haven't really let us know what's going on. We know the bill number, but we weren't even able to. Like we were just talking about in caucus today. It's all being negotiated on the other side of the aisle as of right now. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of communication on both sides. Which, if we want this to be a long-term viable solution, then it needs to be bipartisan and has to take into consideration the reps and experts and educators from the Detroit area and in Detroit specifically. So.
You've got a 2-week vacation coming.
Yeah, I know. I do know that. So, an in-district work period. I actually have a lot going on. I'm
Well,
reading.
I'm sure you
I'm
are,
reading
right?
I'm reading to a lot of students, and we have coffee hours, but yes, there's
But you're not going to
unfortunately
pass a bill before
during
then,
that
so
exactly. If nothing gets
you gotta
passed by
get
that,
Monday.
correct. If it doesn't get passed before that, we are on a break. Now they could call us back. That's not likely. It doesn't usually happen. So.
I'll never do that.
So yeah. So no, I'll keep you posted. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Representative, for coming
Sure.
back and speaking to us. I just wanted to add to the DPS stuff. I think it's a lot of residents need to know that the Detroit public school system has been under state control for how many years?
99, I think, is one.
Since 99. So when people say this is a Detroit problem, or they need to solve their issues in a singular manner, this has been on the state for many years to figure out. So I do believe it's a tragedy that now these kids are suffering in the DPS district. The residents of that district have been denied democratic control of their district.
Sure.
We have a great district here. We have a democratically elected school board. We have a superintendent who are guiding this district in really positive ways. The residents of Detroit have been denied that for many years now, and I just think it's a shame. So I would applaud you and any efforts to make sure that DPS gets what they need to get here in the coming weeks. It doesn't sound too likely, but
We'll see. I don't want to be pessimistic. I hope that if we do this, at least this stopgap for now, to just, like I said, to make sure that the kids can finish out the school year. But one of the things, unfortunately, like you said, this has been under state control for some time, and the conditions of the schools are deplorable. I mean, you've seen mold and rats, and in the wintertime the heating system doesn't work, and kids have to wear their coats in school, and there's broken windows. There's all these different things, and you have these teachers who were rightfully so highlighting this issue because it's not an environment that's conducive to learning for the students or for the teachers to teach in, and they were trying to highlight the problems, and unfortunately the first reaction with the legislature, some of the bills on the House side that they were presenting was to try to get them in trouble or to penalize them for that, instead of saying, oh, they're bringing to light a really serious issue here. Let's figure out how to fix this problem. Instead, they're saying, well, let's penalize the people, for taking off. But they're looking out for themselves and the kids. They're looking out for the whole education system here in Detroit. So it's, again, I don't know what the final product's going to look like, but I'm not going to vote for something that's going to harm the kids in Detroit and the surrounding areas, or any of the kids here in the state of Michigan. This has got to be a plan that helps. Like, and I've said it from the very, very get-go, is that, you know, we should be putting more money in the education system here in the state of Michigan for our public schools. You know, you have a lot of these uncapped, untracked. There's no financial disclosure for all these charter schools, and they're all for profit, or not all. The ones that are for profit are, you know, they're worried about the bottom line. They're not worried about educating the students. And this is something Superintendent Pruitt might be able to speak with. But I attend these superintendent breakfasts once a month. I try to get there. And the superintendent from Royal Oak brought up a good point of how there's something like, 10 charter schools along the Woodward corridor somewhere for 1,100 students. And so it's just real estate speculation is what they ultimately, they hope that the area will start to, or continue to grow, and then they don't care about the students. They can sell it off because they're only, they're worried about the stakeholders and they're worried about the shareholders, not necessarily about the students. So that's why, I've been harping on these for-profit models, because they don't have a requirement like all these public schools to actually educate our students.
Well, not
So-
to get too political, but you do have a legislature that loves charter schools.
Yeah.
And doesn't like the public school system.
Yep.
Is trying to beat
Which
that.
and I don't
It's not
understand.
just the Detroit public schools.
Right.
too,
It's
every-
throughout the state. That's exactly
they're
right.
Against the unions or against everything else. So-
Yeah. So
So it's,
yeah, it's it keeps me busy, and it's that percentage. I always talk. People ask if I love my job. I love my job 98% of the time, but there's 2% when you're dealing with some people who you don't know what they're thinking. You don't know why they think the way they do, and just wonder how that they're just crazy. So I hate to say
good,
that.
I'm good. I'm good.
So I apologize for
Well, I would say, Mayor, it's okay for politicians to get political once in a while.
Every once in a while.
yeah.
But just one more thing, I did
Sure.
hear about proposed state cuts to mental health throughout the state. If you could talk about where that's headed and if that seems likely and how that might affect.
Sure.
Services.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I know that was in the proposed budget. Something like $300 million. Is that right? I think that's what I saw. Like I said, it's kind of it's going to change and it's going to evolve. That's not something I would support. Believe me. We have to take care of our vulnerable population. That's for sure. And so that's not something that I would ever support. And I'm hoping that that's not a partisan issue. I really think
Right.
that there are these places where we need to, our money needs to go in these areas for education, for mental health, for all these different things that are so important, that are, again, I don't think they should be partisan. I think this is something as a society we have to take care of our young and those people less fortunate, so it's a question of your priorities in the budget and taking away money. I mean, that's why I'm going to have this town hall on the graduated income tax. We can cut 95% of taxpayers in the state of Michigan. We can cut their taxes. 95% of taxpayers will pay less in taxes, for their income taxes here, state income taxes. You raise the tax rates on, top 5%, more specifically, the top 1%, and you generate over $700 million new dollars every year. Money that can go for a lot of these programs, So no, that specifically I won't support. I don't know how it, I don't know where it's going to end up. Again, that was just in the initial proposal.
Right. They also talked about privatizing.
Well, that's a whole nother scary thing.
County now has a whole group studying that because.
Correct. So if you look at what happens, in these instances when they privatize in our corrections facilities, where you have a for-profit correction facility, which is another whole thing where you're trying to make money off incarcerating people. That's not a good system. And then if you follow what happened in Grand Rapids with the veterans home, where they privatized it to save some money, and now they're getting terrible care. And these are people that obviously served our country, and now they're not getting even like average care. I mean, they're getting terrible care there. So it's just a reoccurring theme of putting the bottom line in spreadsheets ahead of people.
Right.
And we're supposed to be a for people business instead of a for profit business. That's the role in my mind that government serves.
No, I think
So-
you're exactly right. And I was just troubled to hear about cuts to mental health, because I think
I agree.
a lot of issues that we're dealing with in our society, from homelessness to employment to, we've had this rash of, shootings over the many years. And also, always it seems like the bipartisan agreement in the aftermath of those tragedies are always, well, let's focus on mental health. If we can't agree on anything else, if we can't agree on legislation for firearms, let's at least agree on funding mental health. And then when it comes time, rubber meets the mat, to fund these programs and to make sure that, you know, people who may be suffering from mental issues have the resources available to them. Well, we don't have the money, or we want to privatize them, or we want to make a buck off them. So it's very worrisome to me. So
I'm with you.
I'm very glad
I'm
to hear
absolutely
that.
with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then you brought up real quick then about the, you know, with guns specifically. You know, I think there are some common sense solutions that we can implement that unfortunately the NRA doesn't support, and they are a big player. You know, I just recently introduced legislation to keep people in Michigan who are on the terrorist watch list from getting a firearm. I think that's common. I think that makes, you know, sense, right? If you're worried about them and they're not even allowed to board a plane, they shouldn't be able to purchase a weapon. But the concern is, well, if someone gets on there, you know, they're not supposed to be on there. Well, I'd rather have someone, you know, be on the list and have to work to get off the list than give a gun to someone who is a threat to society. And so, and unfortunately, it's a partisan issue. But I have, you know, quite a few that I'm working on, some common sense gun legislation to just keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. You know, I'm not trying to infringe on the Second Amendment. I want to make sure that guns are out of the hands of the people that shouldn't have guns. So that's a whole other issue, and it's a whole other can of worms. I won't get into
It won't
that.
be solved
That's something
at
I'm really.
Pleasant Ridge City Commission.
Yeah,
meeting,
exactly.
but I really applaud your
So
applaud your work.
and out of our schools.
Right. It
So.
just seemed to me that mental health touches on a lot of
Yeah.
society's problems.
Yep.
And it's just disappointing to hear that that's an area that's so eager to be trimmed.
Sure. So, and then I'm going to leave some of these extras. So if anyone at home did like my mom and recycled it,
Okay, great.
they can come grab it here. And if anyone wants to go online, it should be up online as well. And then if they run out and you need a copy, call me. I'll come drop it off.
And I'm sure your father's probably at the Royal Oak Market.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, my PR director. Yeah. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I would just add,
Yeah.
it just so happened that the day that I was a mystery reader for my daughter's class at JFK in the afternoon, Representative Wittenberg here had read for the same class that same morning.
Nice.
Oh.
What book did you read?
Who did it better?
I read it was the night before St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
It's very
Is he a
topical.
tough act? Is he a tough act to follow?
Well, I asked my daughter who read it better.
Yeah.
It was-
I won't share who she said.
It was a different book though. Maybe she wasn't.
Maybe
You know,
it
it
was
was
the
the
book.
book. It was the book.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
Chief. You're on. Oh,
But
not,
Well,
not
you were
till.
a little bit
You
later
can't,
on
you
the-
can't talk about that.
Oh, he's on the agenda. I didn't know he was on the agenda.
He's on the agenda.
I didn't look that far down. I only have a couple items. First of all, if nobody's had time to notice, we recently hired a new crossing guard for Roosevelt School.
Oh, great.
The other ones that we had for a number of years proved to be very unreliable, so we had to let them go, unfortunately. But we were very successful in finding a resident, Nate Rizzo, who all the teachers and school people and bus drivers all know Nate. He lives in town on Maplefield. He's doing a great job. You probably see him out there. You'll see him in his vest and his stop sign. He's taking great pride in his job, and I got nothing but positive feedback from everybody about him. Secondly, crime again. February numbers were down for us. Other cities, surrounding cities, not so much. Not to badmouth them, but there's crime still happening. But our numbers are down. With that, the IRS scams still continue. Not here. But you'll hear it a lot more now on the radio and TV ads and everything. The IRS will not call you. They will not ask you for money. You'll get correspondence in the mail or things like that. So they target the elderly. Calls are typically coming usually from overseas. We've tracked some of them to a San Francisco phone number, but then they're redirected overseas. So don't give them any money or fall for the scam. Recently, there's been a lot of discussion at city commission meetings and the town hall meeting regarding the dogs running loose and or walking without their owners, not on a leash. A proposed dangerous dog ordinance has also been discussed. As a result of that process,
letting everybody know that the city, primarily the police department, will make enforcement action of the existing leash law a higher priority. The ordinance regarding the dogs running at large, I'm not going to read it totally here, it can be found on the city website in the Code of Ordinances. With this in mind, the Pleasant Ridge Police Department will enforce this existing ordinance when it is either observed by officers or we're made aware by concerned citizens. You can report an off-leash dog or a dog running loose at the regular 248-541-2900 number and select 1 to be connected to police dispatch, and we'll respond to that and handle that accordingly. We have issued several warning notices already and 1 dog running loose violation that has already appeared in court. And please remember that this ordinance, as it has existed, is not written to punish anyone, but rather to ensure the safety of our residents, our visitors, and our pets. Recently also, the police department, we were able to purchase 3 new Dell laptops and the hardware mounts to install them in the patrol vehicles. Our old computers, they were here when I started 8 years ago, and they were here 7 years before that, so they were 15 years old. Imagine, I mean, we all get new cell phones every 2 years. Wow. Imagine using computers that are 15 years old, and there's a delay even in the car with the response. So we were quite behind on that. The new computers with their faster speeds and updated technology allow our officers to work more quickly and efficiently in their daily tasks, and this frees them up for their main purposes, which is patrolling our city streets and protecting our residents. These computers would not have been possible without the generous support of the Pleasant Ridge Foundation. So a special shout out has to go out to especially Mike McGrath, Ben Hamilton, and Keith Cunningham, who are our main points of contact and greatly help to facilitate this process. And I, on behalf of the city and the police department, would personally like to thank the residents, one, who continue to support the Pleasant Ridge Foundation in their events and their efforts, and again, the foundation for their continued commitment and support. Because without their donation, that wouldn't have been possible.
That's great. That's awesome.
So, and I've had the opportunity to use it. Yes, I do get out and drive around, and they are very fast. So much faster. You don't have to wait or anything. It's a tremendous improvement for us doing law enforcement. And that's all I have. If there's questions.
Question for the chief. Do these new systems allow you to turn the car off without turning the computer off?
Yeah. Well, no and yes. In the new Charger, we have backup battery technology, and we will move forward with turning the car off. We continue to do that, but like today, Sergeant Reed, who's back there, he turned his car off, the Explorer, and then it logs him off with the dispatch. So then Berkeley called me, who was logged on in the Charger. So I actually had to go out and do police work when there were 2 other officers not with car computers. So I think he did that purposely.
I'm sure he did, yeah. Nice
because it was a terrible truck car accident, which is a nightmare to handle.
I'm sure, yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
But it keeps me on my toes.
There you go. That's probably why he was doing
And I'm
it.
kidding, man. I had to go out and do work. It's my job. Questions? Anything else?
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I see no other government reports. Moving on to the next item. Item 6, request to fund Roosevelt School playground improvements. Jim, did you want to just say a few, or do we?
Yeah, I'll just say a couple things. We have, of course, Superintendent Pruitt and
we're not going to let you up there.
Daddy Keith, the principal from Roosevelt, who are here with us tonight. The school district is working on a playground improvement project at Roosevelt School. Been working on this for some time now. As you may be aware, with the restructuring in the district, there's going to be more students coming to Roosevelt, and so superintendent has been working on this project. This is just the aerial photograph that shows the location of where the playground improvement will be. It's where the old basketball courts were, and there used to be a swing set along Ridge Road. So it's a highly visible location. And so I just pointed out a couple of things before I turn it over to the superintendent to talk about it. But kind of to set the stage, when the superintendent approached the city about this, The timing is pretty good because we had this community survey results that came back, and one thing that I think it's important that no one will be able to read the lettering on here, so I'll read it out to you. But basically, we asked a question that asked residents to rate to rank the parks and recreation facilities that are located in Pleasant Ridge based on how important they were to them. And I think it was an interesting result. When you look at the residents who live on the east side of town, it's the community center, the pool, Gainsborough, and the wellness center. Clear first tier. And then there's kind of a drop to a second tier, and that's Flintfield, the community garden, the dog park, and the Woodward Avenue Greenbelts. And then the bottom tier is the park at the community center, Roosevelt, and Hessel. When you look at Westside residents, it's community center, pool, wellness center, and Woodward Avenue Greenbelt is kind of in the first tier. Well, I guess the first tier is the pool, wellness center, community center. The second tier is the Woodward Avenue Greenbelt, Gainsborough, the community center park, and Roosevelt Park. All pretty much the same. I think what this speaks to is that Roosevelt, the playground at Roosevelt serves a very important neighborhood park function for the west side of the city. So I think with this request coming to you, there's really two parts to it. One, it's a benefit to our residents, having an improved and additional parks and recreation facility on the west side of the city. It really serves as that day-to-day neighborhood park. Residents on the east side of Gainsborough obviously don't need to come over here when you have the community scale park. But for the west side residents who use Gainsborough, but there's also a very important place for these parks and rec facilities. So I think it's a nice opportunity to collaborate with the school district to improve their facilities, to improve our facilities. And so that was staff's thought as we were evaluating the request and looking at the plans. And with that, Blake, sure, turn it over to you. And I've got the site plan and then the aerial that the consultant had put together.
Okay,
So I don't know what you want to talk to.
Sure. First, thank you for letting me come today. We have Diana Keefe, who's a principal of Roosevelt, and trustee Jackie Hart from the school board. So, let there be light.
There you go.
And then I'll talk about all the legislative things that we just got done talking about. Here's a real story now that Wittenberg's gone. No. And I do want to say that we do have a musical this weekend, Putnam County Spelling Bee, and I guess there is a local mayor who might be appearing there.
That's what I understand, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the talent pool is a little dry this year, so.
That's what I thought.
So part of our restructuring and part of the original 2012 bond was evaluating the needs of the community. And one of the needs one of the things we do not have in community is a barrier-free playground. We have a number of students that have disabilities, and they can't use a majority of our playgrounds. And this was actually brought up by one of my parents, who had said, I have to travel a good deal of distance to get my kid to go to a playground, and he can't go with his friends. We started looking at our population of our students, and it's true, and just also within our local community. Our bond funds did allow some money for improvements, and as we evaluated Roosevelt, in that space within Roosevelt was the optimal place to put in a new playground. Also, when you look at the physical confines of that building, with 450 students in it, you only have the one playground space. We used to have the other space near Ridge that had some playground equipment but doesn't. A large pad of concrete is not always a great thing for kids to play on. I realized when we were growing up, we had the big metal slides with the concrete, and we can all compare our bruises. But liability is different. So we had wanted to provide something in that space for the students. And actually we do have some students that utilize that space right now, but we really have to be careful with that concrete pad. So we got a team together with the city manager, parents, administrator, about anywhere from 5 to 10 people at any one time. And then we brought in different playground companies to bid. The playground company that we eventually decided upon was actually the same one that you're using for Gainsborough, Lance Shipman. So his product and his design and his recommendations far exceeded anybody else. So this has been to the school board sustainability or finance committee. They have approved it. It'll be going to our school board on Monday for approval. Part of the collaboration with Pleasant Ridge, we were looking at that the school district can't put everything in place right now, and that if Pleasant Ridge was willing to look at one piece of equipment that they could purchase to put on that property, that would be wonderful, as it's a benefit to the entire community. So if you can go back to the design plan. So the first piece that we heard from the community is don't take down the tree. Now I will say the tree is dying, so we do have to address that. But we'll figure that out. So in taking out everything that's there, all the concrete, all the picnic tables that are sunk into the ground that you can't sit in anymore, and then also finishing up the fence so it can be enclosed, so that you don't have runaway kids if you're there watching your kids, since it's right on Ridge. But looking at some adaptive swing sets, adaptive playground equipment with slides, something that's called, I love this term, the Cozy Dome, which is a great thing for students that have tactile needs, especially autistic students. And then the piece all the way at the end would be the piece that we're asking for Pleasant Ridge to possibly purchase, and that is what I call the merry-go-round 2.0. I forget exactly what the term that they use, but it is not the where you can spin kids around so fast. It is regulated, but you can also easily transport a student from a wheelchair on it, and other students can go on there with it. So if we can go to the next slide, sir. So if you notice, there'll be some normal swings, some handicap accessible swings. The slide that you see the made-up kid on at the moment, that's called a roller slide. It's for tactile, especially for autistic students. And the start of it is wheelchair accessible, where the wheelchair can go right up into the ramp. And that will have a sidewalk that goes right up to it, so they're not going through mulch. So they get up in it. And there's a number of different tactile pieces, some climbing pieces for students with special needs, again, that need that tactile. So if we can go to the next slide, I think we can see the...
I think this is the only picture I got.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Not the greatest, but the piece
Yep.
you'd be buying.
Yep. Yeah, the other one shows the merry-go-round piece. But this would pretty much take up that area and still give a good amount of space for kids to run around, yet give students with special needs and any student or resident, an additional playground space, especially for the younger students, since we all have K2 there. So that's what we're looking at this point. The school district is looking at about a $70,000 to $80,000 investment from the school district. We do have Keller Williams had reached out to us. They have a day of service for their realtors, about 100 of them. I thought maybe it was court ordered, but it's not. So they had said that they had wanted to volunteer for the school district. So they will be there May 12th to put the whole thing together. And they will be managed by Lance and by Landscape Structures. So it'll be a community build. If Pleasant Ridge is able to support it, and once the school district passes it, then we'll end up starting work on getting that area prepped and then ready. So hopefully by mid to end of May, it'll be ready for all the students and all the kids in the neighborhood to play on. So that's our plan at the moment. So I'm going to open it to any questions.
Mr. Mayor, quick question. So in the plan, this is defined as a phase 2. That's absent the funding, say, from us, right? If we were
Correct.
to agree to do this, then it would happen with everything else.
Correct.
Okay.
If Pleasant Ridge wasn't able at this point to support it for various reasons, then that would be a phase 2, and the district would have to look down the road to see if there's other funds later to do it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Blake. I mean, it looks like a great project. I think all the points that have been made, as far as win-win for the district and the Pleasant Ridge and the north corner of North Ferndale, it's going to be really cool. Looking at the preparation for tonight's meeting, I was especially interested in this community build with Keller Williams. Now, will that be exclusively with their employees, or would that be something open to the rest of the community?
It would be open to the rest of the community. It's just you want to make sure that you have enough people to get it done in the day.
Yeah.
So they're actually going to be doing that and sprucing up around the building.
Okay.
So they'll be doing leaves. We're looking at maybe some landscaping that people would donate, different shrubs and things, and so there's a number of projects because you don't have everyone engaged all the time. So we kind of have if you're working on this and you're standing around, here, go do this.
Yeah.
They might be able to get mulch donated, so then we'll remulch the current playground. So we have a number of projects that we're looking at, mostly exterior.
So if any of our residents were looking to help out, would they
Love to have
contact you
them.
guys?
Yep.
Or? Okay.
Yep. Once we get everything passed, I'll give you the information to send out to the community, and bring your shovels.
Yeah, cool. And last, just I'm curious because, like was been mentioned, and everyone knows we're going through a very similar, the exact same process right now in Gainsborough. I guess one of the components that is fundamental that I've learned in these playgrounds are the surfacing.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a decision to go with the mulch instead of, I know poured in place is a option for a lot of these constructions?
We plain don't have the money for poured in place. I really don't know of any school district.
Mm-hmm.
There's one exception, Bloomfield Hills and Wing Lake, which is their special ed school,
Mm-hmm.
through a bond. But same district that also had $20 million in the fund equity to spend outright to build a high school.
Yeah.
And they make 12 to 13,000 per student. We get 7,900. So they have a little bit different financial package. But generally, as we went around, schools can't afford to pour and play because either we get equipment or we get surface.
Mm-hmm.
And according to our liability insurance, we have to have a certain amount of mulch every year.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets inspected every year, make sure that everything's up to code.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's like I said, it's very exciting, and I was really glad to see Diana here tonight, and Jackie, welcome, and congratulations on your appointment. And the mayor talking about reading, we did the event last fall. It was very blustery.
So cold, I can't remember what it was.
November.
In November, yeah, we did the because we had a couple of our residents construct the little libraries across from Roosevelt.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think they came out really, really well. And we had a great day with Diana and the students at Roosevelt. And the thought was, to complement that area of Hessel Park and Roosevelt. But I think this overshadowed. The kids are going to be a little. I think you outdid the little library here in this one. So
I don't know. That's going to be tough. It's tough.
I'm still going to be sitting there reading something, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
We're going to have to come and listen.
That's right.
Before they
You may be just twirling around.
Yeah.
But it looks great.
Really fast.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding the school district or?
Did you have any other comments since we didn't give you an opportunity at the governmental?
No,
reports?
just
Any
really
special-
about the musical. I mean, obviously, I could always go on about the school district, but you have a meeting to get to.
It's only 3 days this time, only one weekend.
Yep, one weekend. So make sure you get your tickets. There'll be full houses. Kids are doing a phenomenal job. So,
Should
great.
be fun.
Yep, thank you all for your continued support. Enjoy your evening.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other? Yes.
Just one thing to put a bow on the conversation. The funding for this potentially from the city could come from a line in the recreation department budget. We have capital improvements. Some of the projects we had budgeted for this year are coming in actually well under budget. So we're going to be able to pick up a couple new projects without changing that budget line. We're going to be doing some work at the baseball diamonds over at Flint Field and actually getting some of the fencing done in advance of the Gainsborough project because that's something we can take on. And this project could be funded out of that same line and it won't require any kind of budget amendment. We've got the funds available. So.
Well, I just wanted to again say how clever it was of you to pull the data from the survey and to be able to show. I thought that was great for a survey guy that I didn't look at it, but to see that how the West Side does recognize Roosevelt as a playground and a recreational facility for them.
Right.
That I think it's critical that this is both a school district and city. It really is a joint effort, and I think it's terrific that we can support an effort like this. So, for my 2 cents. So I'm going to ask if there's a motion to authorize a contribution of up to $7,140.
Your Honor, I move that the Pleasant Ridge City Commission authorize a contribution of up to $7,140 toward the Roosevelt Playground Improvement Project to pay for Phase 2.
Is there support?
A second.
Any other discussion? May we have a vote?
Commissioner Foreman,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Mayor Metzger.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
So it's now, we're phase one, right? We're no longer.
So we'll offer you the first trip down the slide.
I want to be on the Omni spin.
Yeah. Thanks.
Diana will push.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Okay, we will move on to City Commission liaison reports and start with Commissioner Scott and Historical Commission.
That's just a quick one this night for everyone. Set aside June 4th for the Home and Garden Tour within Pleasant Ridge. The Historical Commission is putting together a nice event. We always have this nervous moment where we're wondering whether we get enough houses for the tour, but I think people are coming out of hibernation, are beginning to participate, and it should be another great Home and Garden Tour. So June 4th, set it aside, it'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Krzyjak, Recreation Commission.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A big date to put on everyone's calendar. It's the Pancake Brunch. It's Saturday, March 19th, which is this Saturday, so I hope everybody's hungry. 10 a.m. will be the brunch portion. Pancakes, sausage. I know last year we had such overwhelming response that we got swamped on the pancake building. But I'm guaranteeing I can have Scott can.
We have an additional grill, so we'll
okay. All right.
be able to spit them out a little bit faster.
No one will go away hungry this year, so please bring your appetites. 10 a.m. kicks off the brunch, and then 11:30, and that's 11:30 sharp. I got burned on this before. 11:30 means 11:30, and you don't want to disappoint the youngsters with the egg hunt. So the whistle or horn or however they start the stampede goes off at 11:30 for the egg hunt. So please take that seriously.
And it's over by about 11:30 and 20 seconds.
It takes 29.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're 10 seconds late, you're out of luck.
It's Hunger Games Easter.
They're limping off the field.
It's great. It's a great event. So that's this weekend. Wanted to remind people that baseball signups are still available. So if your little one is interested in playing in the baseball league this year, please know that the deadline for signups for that is approaching. And I also wanted to make the community aware. We have, in light of Ferndale Playground going in at Roosevelt, obviously we have our Gainsborough Playground going in this year. It was determined to have a subcommittee work in the Recreation Commission to look at various concepts and designs and equipment. Scott Peterzak's going to be working with myself, Commissioner Perry, Recreation Commissioners Amanda Wall and Chris Budnick to really finalize selection and plans for that installment. Please, if you have any ideas or suggestions or want to contribute to that conversation, our recreation meetings are the last Wednesday of every month at Fort Ridge. So please, if you're interested in, obviously they have a really beautiful playground going in at Roosevelt. We want to match that enthusiasm and match have just as spectacular playground at Gainsborough. So if you have any ideas or want to keep tabs on the process, please, the Recreation Commission meetings is where we'll be discussing those items. So, go ahead, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Foreman, Committee Liaison.
Yes, a few updates from Ferndale Schools. We've heard from Blake. We've not heard from me yet. I have a few things to add that he didn't cover today. So normally he kind of silences me with his content, but I have a little bit. I came prepared because I knew he'd be here. So the first item is the annual FVF auction. This is taking place at the Magic Bag this year, not in Madison Heights. It'll be at the Magic Bag in Ferndale. The date of the event is Thursday, April 26th from 7 to 10 p.m. So it's not a really long event, and it's on a weeknight, which we believe will be helpful, actually. Thursday is a good night for that type of event. Tickets are $50 each, and the theme this year will be the Grammys. Last year was the Oscars with red carpet costumes, if so desired. This year's the Grammys, so you can dress as your favorite rock star or roadie, whatever it may be, or just come as yourself. A catered roaming dinner will be provided as well. Just as a reminder, FEF, what is that? It stands for Ferndale Education Foundation. It is a charity that raises money that is ultimately awarded to district teachers to improve the assets in the classroom, whether it be educational activities or just general enhancements to the education. So it benefits our kids directly. For more information about FEF and the auction, you can find that at facebook.com/Ferndale Education Foundation. Next is the spring musical that the mayor will be a co-star in. One thing I wanted to mention were the ticket prices and how you can get those. It's $10 for adults, $5 for students and seniors. They can be purchased at the box office. They can be purchased before the show from any cast member or at the Ferndale High School main office. Showtimes. This Friday, March 18th. You'll be at every show, correct?
Just Friday.
Oh, just Friday. Okay, so this is the important one. Friday, March 18th, 7 p.m. Saturday, March 19th, 7 p.m. And finally, Sunday, March 20th at 3:30 p.m. So you have 3 opportunities to see it. It will only be one weekend this time.
Ooh.
Sorry. Got to get out there. So go to the Egg Hunt. Drop by later on after the Egg Hunt, perhaps. Let's see. 2 more items. Rise of the Machines. Ferndale High School robotics team, MP Warriors, they have been awarded a prestigious award, the Chairman's Award, for spreading the importance of STEM education. Everybody pay attention? Okay. STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. They've been spreading the word about this, and they were awarded for it. This award then automatically qualifies them to participate in the state finals, where they can win the state title. The team did very well last year, and we have high hopes for them this year. Finally, the next school board meeting is Monday, this coming Monday, March 21st, 7 p.m. at the high school. And that is all for me.
Great, thank you. And finally, Commissioner Perry, Planning and DDA.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning Commission and DDA met on February 22nd and welcomed 2 new members, Thomas Troiter and Mr. Kevin Barlow, to the boards. The DDA appointed a budget subcommittee to develop the 2016 budget, and the Planning Commission held a public hearing and voted to approve an ordinance to amend the Pleasant Ridge City Code, Chapter 82 zoning, Sections 82-6 violations and Sections 82-8 fines and imprisonment. This will be discussed further tonight as well. The next Planning Commission and DDA meeting will be held on Monday, March 21st, here at 7 p.m. at City Hall. Hope to see you there. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, move to the next item. It's a consent agenda. We have 5 items, and I've chosen to pull out one just to read because I do know that one of our residents is very much interested in this, and I promised her I would read this resolution. It's a resolution recognizing March as Parenting Awareness Month, so if you will, it's a brief resolution, so stick with me for a moment. Whereas March is Parenting Awareness Month in the state of Michigan, and whereas Parenting Awareness Month celebrates people who are raising children, and whereas Parenting Awareness Month seeks to draw public attention to the critical importance of parenting by helping children to become healthy, caring, and contributing citizens, and whereas Parenting Awareness Month seeks to promote education and resources for developing parent skills throughout the year, and whereas Parenting Awareness Month encourages the development of local parenting networks, and whereas Parenting Awareness Month encourages everyone to participate in the lives of all of our children. Now, therefore, I, Kurt Metzger, on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby proclaim March as Parenting Awareness Month in the City of Pleasant Ridge, to support and recognize all efforts and resources, particularly local, that promote, encourage, and educate the community on parenting issues. Be it further resolved that all citizens of the City of Pleasant Ridge uphold the vision that every person, everywhere, every day, understands their responsibility in raising our children. So, with that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Your Honor, I move that the consent agenda be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have one quick thing. The Rosemary Spadafora also provided us with some bookmarks that are back in the back that are celebrating March as Parenting Awareness Month.
Excellent.
So help yourself.
All right, may we have a vote?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Foreman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak,
Yes.
Mayor Metzger.
Yes, motion carries. Next item, supplemental appropriation A-2016-001. Jim?
That's me.
Yes.
This is just some routine budget housekeeping, taking a look at where we're at in the budget as we progress through the year. The DEQ was our friend this year and required the city to do a couple of things. Nothing to do with water quality or anything like that, but they required us to do a water reliability study, even though we've had the same system for 100 years and it seems to work well. We still had to study and model it, so that was a hefty expense that they required us to do, and they've required pretty much every city to prepare one of these. And then they also required us to do some groundwater testing in the DPW yard area from an old file from way back when. So due to these DEQ requirements, our line in the water and sewer budget for contractual services and engineering services ended up about $35,500 over what we had budgeted. So the good news is the water fund has fund balance and can absorb these. It doesn't put us in any kind of peril. But those are the bulk of the budget amendments. Everywhere else, we're tracking just fine. Not looking like we're in for any surprises or anything this year. So
Great.
we're doing well everywhere else.
Anybody with any questions? Is there a motion to approve the supplemental appropriation?
Mayor, I move supplemental appropriation A 2016-001 be approved.
Do I have support?
Support.
Any discussion? May we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Foreman,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak,
Yes.
Mayor Metzger.
Yes, motion carries. Next item, establish public hearing on Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comments on an ordinance regarding the equivalent residential unit, ERU, stormwater charges. Jim?
Thank you. So I do have a PowerPoint for this one. So this proposal is for how we assess our stormwater runoff charges. I want to be clear that this is not an increase in the amount of money we're going to charge to the water and sewer fund. And this is also coming not really by our choice, but by events which are moving us to make this change. I say the last thing, here we are again. The last thing we want to do is after we got done looking at the water fund and how we bill and how we set up the billing structures last year, the last thing we want to do is go back and revisit that. But it's a changing legal landscape. Last year around this time, the city of Ferndale was wrapping up a lawsuit that they settled. A similar lawsuit was filed against the city of Birmingham and the city of Royal Oak. There's a lawsuit in progress against Oak Park. And all of these lawsuits were filed by the same law firm, and they all have the same basic premise. And the premise was how cities were collecting stormwater treatment fees. So all of the communities, Birmingham, Royal Oak, Oak Park, Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, we're all part of the same drainage system. And we all have combined sewers. And so we are assessed charges by the county, and I'll get more into that in a moment. But basically what's at stake here is how we collect money to pay the county. What we're proposing is a new method of collecting stormwater treatment fees. It would essentially add a flat fee to utility bills, and it would be a corresponding decrease in the water and sewer usage rate that we pay right now. The change is no increase or decrease in the amount collected by the city. We're assessed $335,000 by Oakland County right now. We will simply raise $335,000 by another means on our utility bills to pay Oakland County the money that we're already paying them. So it's not a net increase or decrease citywide. It does change who pays, how much. Residents on average will save $23 a year. Businesses and non-residential properties will end up paying more based on how we apportion these costs. So again, we operate a combined sewer system where sanitary, sewage, and storm runoff flow into the same pipes. So what this means is when it rains, the water that hits the ground and runs into the storm system, the drainage system, gets mixed with the sanitary sewage. And so the federal government a long time ago said, okay, well, it used to be that would just go and run off into the water system, the rivers, lakes, our surface water system. Federal government a long time ago said, okay, whoa, that's not good. We're pretty polluted waterways. So now we have to operate, along with Oakland County operates, the wet weather George W. Kuhn Combined Sewer Overflow Treatment Center. On dry days, well, I'll get to that in a second actually, but just so residents understand, our water fund has expenses annually of about $1.25 million. Of that, $225,000 we pay to Detroit for dry day sanitary sewage treatment, and $335,000 of that we pay to Oakland County for wet weather combined sewer overflow treatment. And so this just kind of shows how the sewer system works. You can see that Pleasant Ridge is the green here, and this is a cropped version of the larger overall map. But in Pleasant Ridge, all of the sewage flows really one of two directions. From Ridge Road west, it flows under 696 into Huntington Woods up and then over. And then if you're east of Ridge Road, it all flows to a big pipe that runs basically where Bermuda is, and then it goes up into an interceptor, and then it goes this way. You'll see there's a red line right here. That's an interceptor sewer. So everything drains to this line. On a dry day, it then flows to the south along 8 Mile over in Hazel Park around John R. somewhere, and then it continues down into the city of Detroit, into the city of Detroit sewage treatment plant. On the wet weather days, the amount of water and sewage flowing through the system is too much for the Detroit water treatment plant to handle. So it would overflow and then run untreated into the waterways. So what happens is on wet weather days, the flow is diverted and it goes to the north up to the G.W. Kuhn drainage facility. And so, yeah, that shows basically how it works. So this is a giant system of underground pipes. If you're familiar with the area behind Lowe's, up at 12, at 12 and east of I-75, to the north of Lowe's, that big area where the fence is, that's the Kuhn treatment facility, and all of the pipes run underground. So all the water goes in those underground storage vaults. They're massive, and then it's treated with chlorine and chemicals to basically kill the biologicals that would potentially be a problem in the waterway. And then it all flows to the Red Run drain, which is right here. And then it's in the surface water system and it continues. That's the wet day flow. And that's the stormwater charges assessed to us of $335,000 by Oakland County to operate that system. Back in the 90s, there were some new standards put in place. It's been there for a long time, and it had to be upgraded in the 90s to reduce the number of CSO combined overflow events by the federal government. So it's a federally regulated thing that we have to do. In the past, the costs for that stormwater sewage were included in the water and sewer usage rate. So every resident, as you know, when you get your water bill, you see there's a usage rate of $101.55 per 1 MCF or 7,500 gallons of water you use. $36 of that goes to pay for our sewer, our stormwater runoff treatment costs. The class action lawsuits brought against Ferndale, Birmingham, Royal Oak, and Oak Park charged that cities were assessing that in the wrong way. And the results are Ferndale settled for $4.5 million, Birmingham settled for $2.85 million. Royal Oak won their case. They had a different judge, and they won their case based on some language that they had in their charter that we don't have in our charter. Oak Park is the most recent case, and that's ongoing. So we're watching these cases, and cities are settling them for eye-popping amounts of money. And as a result of that, everyone's kind of looking at how they assess these costs. And Birmingham is actually going to the same model that we're describing tonight. The basis for these suits is the Bolt versus Lansing case. It was a 1998 Michigan Supreme Court case that established how you can determine what is a user fee and what is a tax. A user fee can be assessed on a utility bill, whereas a tax has to be voted on and approved by the people. So the Bolt case established a three-part test. The user fee has to serve a regulatory purpose, it has to be proportionate to the cost of the service, and it has to be voluntary. You don't have to meet all of these in order for a user fee to be considered valid. The case law is, and Greg, step in if I misspeak here, but the case law is unsettled.
You're doing great so far.
The case law is unsettled. It isn't established that a city has to meet all three of these tests, but the key one is the proportionality. That's what really a lot of these cases that have been brought against these other cities has keyed on, is that how much water you use doesn't necessarily have a proportionate relationship to how much stormwater your property is running off into the sewer system. So usage rate is not a proper way to assess stormwater cost for the treatment costs. And that's the key point to a lot of these cases. In the settlements, Ferndale's continuing with a hybrid of the rate base plus a property tax millage, which is all established by the settlement. This proves a key thing that the only people who actually make money in these cases are the attorneys who do the class action lawsuit, and then people who lived in town and have moved away. Because Ferndale residents got a check for what they were improperly billed, but of course now the city's going to be recovering the costs for the settlement that they paid out in the coming years through increased property taxes. Birmingham is moving to an equivalent residential unit model, the same model that Berkeley's used for 15 years, which is really the template for what Birmingham is moving to and what we are proposing to move to. So these are the key actions. What we're trying to get to is a proportional assessment of costs that is hopefully in line with the Bolt guidance that we have. And so the methodology, first, we use engineering calculations to determine what the total stormwater runoff factor is for the entire city. This is done by looking at how much pervious and impervious surface every property has, and then proportionally assessing our costs based on that. So you have a proportional relationship where what each property pays is related to what the stormwater that they're actually running off is. So the calculation, you take 90% of the impervious surface. Impervious is concrete, rooftop, really anything that water can't absorb through. 15% of your pervious surface area is also included in the calculation to determine your runoff area, because even if you have a turf lawns are not completely impervious. If you put a sprinkler on your front lawn and let it run, you'll actually see that some of the water ends up running off over your sidewalk because not all the water absorbs through turf lawn. So when engineers size pipes, this is the calculation they use to determine how big the pipe should be in the ground to handle the runoff. So it's a established way of assessing how much runoff each property is generating. We did a GIS analysis for each parcel using aerial photography to determine how much impervious and pervious surface exists on each parcel, and then ran the calculation. And this is an example of what the analysis looks like. So you start with the aerial photograph, and then you run the GIS analysis, and the yellow becomes impervious areas, and then everything else is the pervious area, and then you run the calculations. So what we find is we have 1,124 single-family residential water customers. The average runoff area using those calculations is 3,609 square feet per residential parcel. So that establishes that 3,609 square feet is what is one equivalent residential unit. For non-residential parcels, they had a total runoff area of 482,148 square feet based on that calculation. You divide that by 3,609, and that tells you that our non-residential parcels are generating the equivalent of 133.6 single-family residential parcels in terms of runoff. So that gives us our total citywide ERU value of 1,257.6. So the next step is to then take that 1,257.6, you divide that into the city's total cost charged to us by Oakland County, and that tells you how much you pay for one ERU of stormwater runoff in a year. Non-residential parcels will be billed based on their actual runoff area. because we have 35 non-residential parcels.
Okay.
For residential parcels, we have 1,124.
Oh.
The city of Berkeley has one size fits all. Every single family residential water customer pays 1 ERU on their taxes or on their utility bills. And the reason for that is Berkeley is very homogeneous in its housing stock. They have a lot of the same size lots and very much the same size houses. As Birmingham, and as we are looking at this, we have a lot more diversity in our housing stock in terms of houses, parcel sizes. We have parcels that are an acre or more, and then we have a lot of parcels that are 5,000 square feet. So as you can imagine, there's a vast difference in how much water is going to run off a acre parcel with a 4,000 square foot house versus a 5,000 square foot parcel that has a 1,200 square foot house. So we have to have some way of distinguishing through the various parts of town for single family neighborhoods. Birmingham has the same issue. They're using zoning districts. We ran 3 different analyses to figure out how to break out our residential areas in a way that made sense. We looked at assessors' neighborhoods, we looked at our zoning districts, and we looked at doing it by street. Using the assessors' neighborhood as our unit of assessment for residential areas had the smallest variance and was I guess the most targeted way to assess our residential properties. So if you're in one of the 11 assessors neighborhoods, all houses in that neighborhood will be assessed the same ERU value. And they range anywhere from 0.7 to 2.32. So you can see there's a big variance in what those averages are. The reason for using averages for single family parcels is because, quite simply, there's a lot of things that homeowners can do that change the amount of runoff your parcel generates. You don't have to get a permit to put in a patio or to put in flat work on your property, and that changes how much water your property runs off. We get aerial photography every 3 years, roughly, from the county and from SEMCOG, so we can update our calculations every 3 years. But keeping on top of what every single parcel does when there's a lot of changes that occur in the city will be difficult. So that's why we're going with the neighborhood averages for single family residential. Because if one house adds a patio that's 100 square feet, that could change that house's individual ERU runoff calculation noticeably, but amongst the average of the entire neighborhood, it's actually a very minor difference. So it helps to smooth out those changes on the ground that we see. So when we look at the neighborhoods, these are the assessors' neighborhoods, and the ERU value for each neighborhood is listed here. So 0.76, 0.7, we have 1.08 along Woodside Park, 1.05 along Millington, and you can see that these values track very closely with lot size. You can just see bigger lots, bigger ERU values. So this just gives you some sense of the differences amongst the different parts of town. So cost per ERU, and this is using our fiscal year 15-16 stormwater treatment cost of $335,000. This cost will change. Oakland County will tell us what our cost for fiscal year 16-17 will be, and we'll update this accordingly. But what will happen is the new Oakland County number will go here, we'll divide it by the total number of ERUs, and that'll get us to this number. So it's $266.85 per ERU this year. Then you multiply that by your ERU value, and that's what your annual cost will be on your utility bill divided by 6. This is offset by the lower water usage rate, of course. We expect about a 30% reduction in that water usage rate, going from $101.50 down to probably somewhere around $70, maybe a little bit less per MCF. Again, these are early estimates, depending on where the costs that we get from all of our outside suppliers come in at for the next budget year. Again, that's an average savings of $23 per residential customer. The actual cost impact for each household will depend on the parcel characteristics, the neighborhood you're in, the ERU value you have, and how much water you use. If you're a high water user, you may save a lot more money. If you're a low water user, you may end up paying a little bit more money. And again, this is just kind of the situation we have that's been laid at our feet by the courts, and I think we have to react accordingly to minimize our potential exposure to being served with a similar lawsuit that these other cities have. And for businesses, the average annual increase for our non-residential businesses will be about $975 a year. And that's just because most of your businesses are paved from property line to property line.
Yeah.
And, for a long time, they've been generating a lot of stormwater runoff that, quite honestly, our residential users have been subsidizing the way that the rates have been assessed. So the key point in this equivalent residential unit model is it is much more of a fair share model that targets what you pay versus what you're contributing to the system and what the city is eventually paying to treat. And so we just want to pass those costs along in a way that makes sense and is proportional. So that's the overview. What's before you is to establish a public hearing for the ordinance. All of this analysis comes from the study that was done that goes along with the ordinance. And then the ERU value will be updated every year based on the cost for stormwater treatment that we get from Oakland County. And I would be happy to answer any questions or clarify any.
And you'll be
anything you have.
putting this presentation up on the web.
Yes.
So people have.
Yep. So we will make sure everyone knows that this change is coming, before it happens. And the study is online already. It's in this packet, and we'll make it prominently available on the website, so everyone can see exactly what the process is and what it means.
Yeah, I would just say that I just wanted to make sure to emphasize the point about the survey or the study being online, because this was provided to us in preparation for this meeting. But I want to thank you for putting the time and effort into compiling this. It's really easy to understand in layman's terms, which I greatly appreciate. So I would encourage any residents who are interested in where we might be going on this to really dig into that. It's online, and like I said, it's really accessible, and it really lays out the situation we're in, but also, your logic for how we're billing this way. So please check that out online.
Questions?
I don't want to jump to the head of the line.
Go ahead.
You're there.
You're there.
You are there.
You win.
But yes, I mean, we've exchanged some emails, and I think the group knows kind of where I'm coming from on this. One thing that I would like to see is for us to go a little bit deeper than the neighborhood calculations. I know the 11 neighborhood classifications results in 11 individual charges if you reside in that neighborhood. I think it like you said, Jim, it really smooths out some of the rough edges as far as people adding or things as far as the aerial assessments. But I personally would like to see that moved a little bit farther and go beyond the neighborhood and get down to a parcel level calculation. The numbers that are included in this survey, which is available online, break down a runoff area for each property. And I would like to see those numbers used for individual bills based on the runoff. One of the considerations that when we started this discussion, I know, and this dovetailed a little bit into Leslie's discussion about pesticides, right? There is a concern about I can only worry about my property, and there's runoff that I'm responsible for, and then I will be billed by my municipality for the runoff that I put, the strain that I put on that treatment. If there's no monetary incentive for a resident to correct or do what they could do to harness some of that stormwater runoff. I know a very important part of our Gainsborough Park contains some elements for exactly this purpose. Storage of stormwater, reduce our output to the GW Coon Drain. I feel like residents should have that same opportunity on their own property to make adjustments to their own runoff and then be able to see that reflected in their bill. If we go with the 11 neighborhood billing parcels or the billing numbers, that kind of gets washed out, and I guess on an aggregate you could do some things on your own property that average out and affect the rate that your neighborhood will be charged. But really from an individual's perspective, there's not a financial, I mean, you can still do whatever you want, and what's good is good. You don't need a monetary incentive to do good, but, you know, that I believe that would help, you know, get residents thinking about, you know, what they're adding to the system. So, I've let it be made clear, I think this is a great system to do. I think this gets us to a point where we're more accurately reflecting the strain that each property is putting on our stormwater treatment. But again, I would like to see it go a little bit further down to the parcel level. If I could get to my question, we did see, as far as the litigation, that Royal Oak did prevail in their battle with this law firm. I guess that's subject to appeal at a higher level if they want to proceed with that. So that may even turn against Royal Oak.
That's correct. The plaintiff's attorneys have actually asked the circuit court to reconsider that decision. That's pending, and that's usually preliminary to filing an appeal to the Court of Appeals, which they can do as a matter of right. Everyone gets one automatic appeal, and it's fairly likely, I think, that decision, if not changed on reconsideration, will go up on appeal.
Okay. And I guess our defense, as it stands now, you know, would be, you know, similar to what Royal Oak. I know you said we don't have the charter language that Royal Oak does in that case. Okay. So,
I mean, there are other defenses,
right?
But both, as was noted, both Ferndale and Birmingham decided to settle their cases rather than proceed with those and bear the cost of the litigation.
Right. And I think it needs to be emphasized too, pretty much the vast majority of communities in this state are billing as we have billed for stormwater. So this is something I think you're going to see a lot of communities go to correct here in the coming years. And I think us getting out in front of it, I think we're positioning ourselves very well. Again, I feel like this is a really good document, a really good plan going forward. I would just like to see it go a little bit farther. So
can I?
Yeah.
I think if I understood, you were talking about if we do a parcel level assessment for residential, that allows us to then allow homeowners to gain credits, or basically if they do actions to put more water in the ground, then they should be charged less. And that is admirable. I think we would enjoy that. Ann Arbor does it that way, but Ann Arbor is different than us, because the difference is if that homeowner reduces the amount of water that runs in theirs, what they're doing is we don't get concurrent credit from Oakland County. So so they put that water in the ground, our bill from Oakland County doesn't go from $335,000 to $334,900. Oakland County still bills us $335,000. So what happens is that homeowner shifts some of the cost onto every other property owner in town, because we have to pay the same amount. Ann Arbor has a separated system, so they have storm pipes and they have sanitary pipes. And Ann Arbor has a stormwater utility that operates their stormwater system. Ann Arbor is wholly contained. They don't pay an outside agency. So in Ann Arbor, if you put water in the ground, the city actually does then benefit, because they have fewer treatment costs, they have fewer things they have to do. So they offer credits to homeowners. They also have we've talked about this, but they also have a 20-person department who does nothing but these issues.
Right.
The parcel level assessment for residential properties is difficult for the city, because I don't think that we have the capability to keep that accurate over time. It's a limitation that we have. And if one homeowner comes in and it's a permitted activity that they have to give us site plans, and we can update their ERU calculation based off their site plan, and another homeowner does something that's not permitted and it flies under the radar, we start to build up over time throughout the city these inconsistencies. So that's why we are not recommending we go to the parcel level assessment method. I agree it's the ideal, but I don't think that we can get there in a way that is consistent over time. So that's why we are where we are. And that's why, you know, I'd love to offer credits for people to put stormwater in the ground. I talked with Oakland County Drain Commission a number of times about if the city did stormwater infiltration projects where we actually put green infrastructure in the streets to run it in the ground before it got in the sewer pipes, you know, in the public right of way. And could we get, you know, can we get credit for that? And the answer is just, yeah, no, we're not really set up to do that. You know, it'd be great if you do. We hope you do.
Right.
And says, okay, well, you have any money to help us out with that? And I said, nope. So, you know, it just under the current system we operate in, we're not really set up to do that. And hopefully someday we get there. But it's going to take more than just Pleasant Ridge to do that. So.
Yeah. No, the credit. Yeah, the credit or the, you know, the green investments that residents make. Yeah, I understand how overall, you know, that would put us at a disadvantage as far as making that payment to Oakland County. I guess what I was thinking was more of if I reduced my stormwater runoff that was, you know, verifiable, then my, just not short of being granted credits that you're right are going to have to be made up somewhere else. Just my calculation would go down, and hopefully, you know, or when they did the reassessment, or whenever we did a reassessment, that my rate would reflect the investment that I made in
Yours
my property.
would, but the cost per ERU would have to go up because we're now spreading that cost amongst fewer ERUs.
Exactly.
Right, but
So every other resident would pay more.
but there would be less going out as a total, right? So
We're not billed less though.
no, but over time we could be billed less if our residents were putting less
Oakland County's
stormwater.
not gonna do
Oakland
that.
County doesn't get to that level. They wouldn't. And you know what? Trees are the best thing you can do to reduce stormwater runoff. Trees have a huge impact on how much stormwater runs off a property. And, you know, when Oakland County does their analysis, they don't take into account tree cover, even though we have a huge tree canopy here that a lot of communities don't. So
Yeah.
we're probably overbilled by Oakland County, but based on the 9,000-page engineering document that they have that's prepared by, you know, some firm, they didn't get down to that level because they can't. It's not verifiable, I guess, even though studies have shown. So there's a lot of inequities in how we're billed, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, you can put water in the ground that doesn't get in the system, but we're not getting credit for that from Oakland County.
Okay.
And if they change that we can, then absolutely we'll look at how we do this. And if we can get a concurrent credit from Oakland County, then absolutely, because I want to encourage people to put stormwater in the ground. It's the right thing to do. But right now, we're dealing, you know, that we're playing the hand we've been dealt.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
couple questions. So, if we approve this new billing method, first off, when would it start? And then second, how would we communicate the change to make sure everyone understands it and is aware of it?
Right. It would start in the new fiscal year, so it'd take effect July 1st. And it would show up on the bills that go out for July and August, so you would receive those bills in September. So we'd have until September to publicize this. So we'd send a mailing to every house. You know, we do a fact sheet like we normally do.
Last time.
Yep, like last time.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay. Is there a motion to approve a public hearing being established?
Your Honor, I move that a public hearing be established on Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comments on an ordinance regarding equivalent residential unit ERU stormwater charges.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? May we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Foreman,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak,
No.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Mayor Metzger.
Yes, motion carries. Next item, establish a public hearing on Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comments on an ordinance to amend the Pleasant Ridge City Code, Chapter 82, zoning, Section 82-6, violations, and Section 82-8, fines and imprisonment. Is that you, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is another step in our establishment process for municipal civil infractions. Once we have the municipal civil infractions established in the city code, this is an amendment that establishes that zoning violations are municipal civil infractions. This has to go through a separate process since it's updating the zoning ordinance, and that requires a planning commission public hearing and consideration and recommendation. The planning commission held that at their February meeting and made a recommendation of approval to the city commission, so now you may take up this amendment as well.
Any Questions? Comments? Is there a motion to establish a public hearing?
Your Honor, I move that the public hearing be established on Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comments on an ordinance to amend the Pleasant Ridge City Code, Chapter 82 zoning, Section 82-6 violations and Section 82-8 fines and imprisonment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? May we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Foreman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak?
Yes.
Mayor Metzger?
Yes, motion carries. One more public hearing. And next item, establishing a public hearing on Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comments on an ordinance regarding municipal civil infractions.
I'll provide a quick overview, and then, of course, Greg Need has been involved in drafting this for us, so if you have any questions, go that way. This is the next and final step in the city code, at least, for moving to municipal civil infractions. This is where we're actually reclassifying some of our offenses from misdemeanors to civil infractions. There's 7 items in the proposed amendment. I'll give a very quick overview of those. Number 1 increases the civil fine for first offense from $50 to $100 and clarifies language with regard to repeat offenses. The fine for a misdemeanor is substantially higher than $50 or $100, so in order to have an effective deterrent, the fine is increasing for civil fines, and this is in line with what other communities are doing. Item 2 converts a penalty for violating our landlord licensing from a misdemeanor to a civil infraction. Item 3 converts a penalty for violating our ordinance regarding peddlers' licenses from a misdemeanor to a civil infraction. Item 4 makes a change to clarify a paragraph and section designations in the amendments previously adopted by the commission. We caught a couple of small little typos. Item 5 deletes section 38-3 dealing with smoke detectors. That topic is now covered by the Michigan State Construction Code. Item 6 adds a new chapter 70, article 5, which continues and formally establishes a parking violations bureau for the city. And the amendment set forth the process and also a schedule of parking fines that we would use. Item 7 changes the penalty for violating section 7429 to provide that any person who willfully or carelessly breaks, tampers, destroys any portion of the water system is guilty of a misdemeanor instead of the current civil infraction designation. This is one where tampering with the water system is probably more of a criminal act than a civil infraction. So we would really like to encourage people to not tamper with our water system, please. And that is the summary of what's being proposed in the ordinance. And I would be happy to have Greg Need answer any questions that you have.
And Greg would be happy to answer. Are there any questions?
Go for it.
Off the hook.
All right, what's going on there?
I live another day.
You're not done. Okay, is there a motion to establish a public hearing?
Mayor, I move that a public hearing be established on Tuesday, April 12th, 2016 at 7:30 p.m. to solicit public comments on an ordinance to amend the Pleasant Ridge City Code, Chapter 82, zoning regarding municipal civil infractions. Maybe that's the wrong one. No, that's the right one.
Yeah,
We're on
good.
12. Sorry.
Yeah. Second?
Second.
Any other discussion? May we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Foreman?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner
Shouldn't say
Kuziak?
zoning.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Zoning, that one.
Yes, motion carries. You did good, Jim. It's okay.
No, it shouldn't say zoning.
Next item.
I shouldn't have said zoning. Zoning is the previous one.
Okay.
So it's a typo.
Next item, certification of delinquent utility bills and delinquent invoices for collection on the 2016 summer tax roll. Anybody want to?
This is annual housekeeping.
Talk about it?
Yep, our Darren is here. He's our utility billing clerk. He can tell you about all this,
Tell
but
us, Darren.
Mayor and City Commission, this is like an annual thing that we do every year. This year we have 57 properties that are delinquent in their water bills, and we have to notify them. They have till May 1st to pay that before, and then it gets placed on their summer taxes. So we have 57 properties with the charges ranging from $20 to $2,000, and then we have one property with a delinquent invoice that will also be included on that as well.
So they have till May 1st?
Yeah, they'll get a letter from me stating that they have till May 1st to pay it, which
Usually that gets them.
majority of them pay it before they even get to this far. I think we ended up rolling just a handful last year.
Are there any questions? All right, do I have a motion to approve the placement of, well, whatever this says?
Mayor, I move
I'm not
that
gonna-
the properties in the city with unpaid water and sewer charges or unpaid invoice, or an unpaid invoice for a period of at least 2 quarters as certified by the city administration be placed on the 2016 summer tax roll as a special assessment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, may we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Foreman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak?
Yes.
Mayor Metzger?
Yes, motion carries. Next item, resolution in support of the Michigan DNR passport grant application. Good, Scott.
Me? All right, I have just a small little presentation here just to kind of
This is fun.
go over the passport grant with the commission. So tonight we're asking the commission to approve an application for a Michigan DNR recreation passport grant. Basically, the recreation passport grant came about in 2010 when they started to offer you the passport sticker that goes on your car from when you get your license plates. You get into all the state parks then with that one fee. So there's about $12 million they take from that fund and put right back into the state parks. The rest of the money they take about 10% of that and put it back into local governments to be able to have these grants. So basically the program can be used for local development projects focused on renovating and improving existing parks, but development of new sites is also considered. But they really focus on improving existing areas of recreation in the state to get people outside. So for our application that we're proposing is the pavilion portion of the Gainsborough Park that we've been talking about. There's certain things in the park project that are kind of like a phase 2 after we did a prioritization, and an outdoor picnic type pavilion is one of those things that was a phase 2 item. So, and partly because these grants are designed to pay for those. When you look up what this grant is for, the number one thing on there is like a picnic pavilion. So that's what we're hoping to be able to secure. So the city would have a matching amount of $35,000 to put toward the grant, and we would ask from $35,000 from the state. So we have a 50-50 match. We get more points, the more funds we put toward it. That would be we look at general fund and the special parks revenue fund to be able to fund that. So the total project that we're considering is approximately $70,000. So real quick, this is one of the drawings that we had done up and proposed from a design team. This is the existing shelter building right here, and proposed outdoor picnic type pavilion. Fit anywhere from 8 to 10 picnic tables underneath it. Probably another 50 to 60 people in shelter. So you could really have an outdoor function there if it was raining or the weather wasn't the best, and you'd have some kind of cover, or just to be able to get out of the sun and have a nice place to relax in the park. The proposed pavilion includes skylights, clear tempered glass you can see on the top there to let in some of the natural light into the facility. A standing seam metal roof, which would also be put on the shelter so it would match, so the architecture would match in the two buildings. A concrete pad underneath, so the picnic tables would sit level. We wouldn't have some of these outdoor pavilions have like a gravel type pad, but a concrete is just a better surface for this. This is another a pedestrian perspective. If you were standing in the park, here's where the new top playground is, where proposed new playground is going to be, and a little cutout gathering area in the new park plan. So you can see with those upgrades, it's aesthetically pleasing, and it would really really change that whole area of the park. Even more so than what we plan to do with the existing improvements that we're going to be doing. An overhead view, just to see how that seam roof is, and the skylights, to be able to bring some natural light into this pavilion.
I love the skylight.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great look. And you, if you've ever seen any of the pavilions that do have skylights in them, sometimes the glass is like coated and with a color, and sometimes it's not. It can create a different effect inside. Usually the architects and whatnot, they recommend you go with clear. I mean, because it can even change the color of the food that's in there, and it's really crazy. Yeah, so it's skylights make it great. You know, that way you can avoid some artificial lighting in there that you wouldn't necessarily need during the day, and it really really brings that out. So that's it for the presentation. If there's any questions, really the resolution that we'd be asking to pass is approval of the application and the funding mechanisms that we said, the general fund and the special parks revenue. So we would only be looking at using that money if we were to receive the grant, of course.
It's a great design.
So yeah, I think it is a great look for the park, and it would allow us to be able to get this $35,000. We haven't received the grant from the state for the park since 1990, when we used was a bond fund grant to build that building, that shelter building, which I actually just found pictures of when they were originally building that building from a few days ago. So
that was state money. That state.
Yeah, so I'll share those pictures with you. I'll scan them in and I'll email to you. It's pretty interesting. So
I would just clarify one thing too, that the applications are due April 1st.
Yes.
The DNR takes, I don't know, they work in like glacial timeframes. So they will probably announce grant winners in December. So we were talking about a 2017.
Yeah, it's a 2016-17 funding. The passport grant is awarded by the DNR director. The Land and Water Conservation Fund and some of the other grants go in front of a board, and they look at it, and they come out and do a site visit, and it's really like this process where the passport grant is, they try to streamline it a little bit more. So their streamline is that they start looking at them in October and let you know in like November, December. So that's from April to November you wait basically. But I think we have a pretty good chance at getting one of these grants, because like I said, one of the things they do look at is when you received one previously, and it's been a while. So
And then you have to match 50%.
yeah, and a 50% match is something that they really like, and the maximum you can ask for a passport grant, I believe, is $45,000. So we're not even looking at asking for the maximum amount. So I think there's a good shot at it. It's a nice design. We're already putting in a large improvement into the park, so just adding that much more fits perfect into this grant. So
It's interesting, the question on whether it was reserved for residents only.
right, so that is one of the questions they ask, because anytime you use state funds, you have to have the park facility open to all residents of the state. So on the application, they actually ask, are any of your other parks?
You had to say yes.
And we say yes, and we tell them the pool, and we tell them what the funding mechanism is for the pool, that we don't use any state funding for that, and that won't.
Oh no,
that won't.
Oh, so they get that detail.
Yeah.
Because all I see here is a yes.
Yeah, there's a detail. The application that you had in your packet is, everything's online now, the way they do it, and they don't print up nicely. And yeah, there's some footnotes, but they just don't print up nicely. And I told Jim, I said, it looks like it was put together by like a kindergarten, because I'm pulling these from the state's website, but everything's online now. So it will be a complete application when we send everything into them with, we have to show them titles and who owns the property and legal descriptions and all kinds of things that go along with that. So
I was just following the no's and yes check marks. I couldn't tell.
I know.
They kept kind of shifting around.
Yeah, I think they try to trick you on purpose and switch them around, like on some surveys, like.
Right.
So, any other questions?
Thanks.
I would just say thank you for you guys for putting that
Yeah.
together. It looks like a winning proposal, and like you said, it's going to complement that whole area. I know we've talked over the coming year about that exact same feature, and we've had much discussion about priorities in phase 1 and phase 2. I think this, like you said, it fits perfectly. So thank you for you guys for putting the work into getting that applied for.
Not a problem.
If I could just add something to the design of it, far exceeded what I would have envisioned. So I think was it Design Team Plus that did that one?
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah,
Very happy.
they were one of the firms that we actually interviewed for the
Right.
whole project that we kept on
Kept them
to be
around.
able to call, and Jim gave a call, and they turned that around pretty quickly, and I think it looks great. I was pleasantly surprised how quick they turned it around and how great it looks. So these pavilions can be cookie cutter, set down, $20,000-$30,000, and you get what you get, but you add some little touches, and it can really make it look nice and match some other things in the park. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, here's a perfect example of why it was so important to keep those companies that put in their bids, to keep them on our side for calling on later. I mean,
Absolutely.
instead of burning bridges and just having one, this was a brilliant move.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Well, they're all a different skill sets, so
Right.
Yeah.
being able to pick the right
And here we see
firm for the
Yeah,
job.
it's great.
it's great.
Mr. Mayor, one more question. And this is not asking for a commitment now, but do these types of pavilion structures often have power inside?
Oh yeah, they will have.
Like lighting?
There's typically an artificial light source. We have the skylights, but there is something that at nighttime they kick on, and then there's typically at least one security light in there. So there's at least a small amount of light that shines in the shelter, so you don't have people trying to sleep on the picnic benches or something like that. So there is definitely power, and that is something that we look at. Dropping some power down into the columns, because now it's a power hungry time. People want to plug in their radios or microphones or phones or computers, anything. So we'll definitely have power.
Thank you.
And just while we're on the topic of power and Wi-Fi down in that portion of the park.
Yep, it's there right now. We haven't spread that broadcast ID out yet.
Sorry.
For people, so no, it's fine. It's not the password isn't out there for people to grab in the public spot. We have There is Wi-Fi in the building. It does blast out to, you can get it at least if you're in the playground area or the tennis court area, you can reach it. So once we start doing construction on the park, we will have some repeaters that kick out, like to DBW. There'll be one that will repeat the signal, and we'll do our best with the infrastructure that's there to be able to blast a signal outdoors. Once those signals get outdoors, they can go far, or like it hits a playground and it fizzles to nothing. So there will be Wi-Fi in the immediate shelter area for sure.
Yeah, I know, because that was one of the things we discussed at the Recreation Commission level was, having the opportunity, to have a, gathering there, or have parents watching or not watching their kids doing their Facebook.
Yeah, we had Comcast had to come in and put in some new lines and bury some additional cables, but it's installed and it's up and running. It's just waiting for us to put the password out there or to open it up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the application?
Your Honor, I move that the resolution in support of the City of Pleasant Ridge, Michigan Department of Natural Resources Passport Grant application be approved.
You have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? May we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Krzyjak?
Yes.
Commissioner Foreman?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Mayor Metzger?
Yes, motion carries. And good luck to us. All right. Next item, City of Pleasant Ridge City Commission 2016 goals and objectives.
Yes, this is probably the second step in our fiscal year 16-17 budgeting process. The first being the capital improvements plan, which is approved by the Planning Commission. This is something that we overhauled last year. This year we reviewed our goals and objectives and removed a few that had been achieved and added a couple in there, but by and large it's consistent with last year's list. These goals and objectives go into the city's budget, and they become a basically a set of criteria against which budgeting decisions are evaluated. So are they furthering our goals and objectives? This is our statement of intent, really, for what the City Commission wants to accomplish. The document is in the packet. We have the 2015 goals and objectives online. If approved, we'll get the 2016 goals and objectives online as well, and then these go into the budget document. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on these.
Any? Okay, good, great.
I'll just make a comment. It's kind of nice to set these goals and objectives and see that progress was made on them in the previous year, and hopefully this year as well.
Amazing. Certainly expect that. Okay, do I have a motion to approve Commission goals and objective statement?
Mayor, I move that the 2016 City of Pleasant Ridge City Commission goals and objective statement be approved.
Second?
I second.
May we think about this?
Commissioner Foreman?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Kuzak?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Mayor Metzger?
Yes, motion carries. Now what you've been waiting. Resolution regarding participation in OAK-TEC.
Good evening.
Hello.
Wanted to give you a little bit of background on that. Don't know if you saw it in the packet because Darren just showed me the packet was 130 some pages long. So
We read every page.
all right,
every page.
all right. Well, just give you a little bit of background here. OAK-TEC is short for Oakland County Tactical Training Consortium. It's made up of all but 3 law enforcement agencies in Oakland County, Pleasant Ridge being one of those 3. The consortium has semi-regular critical incident training for the departments that are members of that. Most often, they're doing active shooter training around the county, different places, bringing in officers from all the different departments. Training not only gives the officers the tactics and experiences of dealing with the active shooter, but also allows them to train with other officers from other departments so that when we do have to go to a critical incident, we're all on the same page. We know what each other are doing, we know where we should be, we know what's going to happen, what's going to go down. Besides the training, OAK-TEC allows the communities that join to utilize the resources of the group, its equipment, the vehicles, personnel, and training for the critical incidents. So not only would we get the resources quickly, but when the incident's over, we wouldn't get a bill because we would be a member of OAK-TEC. It's not to say that OAK-TEC wouldn't help if we did have a critical incident, but we wouldn't get a bill for it. I spoke with Captain Yancey from Beverly Hills Public Safety Department today just to find out all the stuff that they have and all the resources and equipment, just to give you an idea of what they have. At this time they have simunitions, which are basically paintballs that they go into the rifles and handguns, but they actually fire from our handguns, so you get realistic training. They have ammunition, they have weapons, they have vehicles, generators, ATVs, road barriers, riot gear, and he told me that they have 8 trailers full of miscellaneous equipment. So, I mean, it's a lot of stuff that they have in case something bad does happen. So, OAK-TEC is free to join initially, but there is a yearly fee per department for $250. Just for comparison, $250 is normally what we would pay one officer to go to one training class.
Sure.
So with that, we'll get all of our officers trained at least once a year, you know, for that training. So the benefits heavily outweigh the fee. OAK-TEC, any expenses that they incur, they offset by grants. So it's way above my pay grade, so they deal with that. As I said, we're one of 3 departments that are not involved with it at this time. Spoke with Huntington Woods today. They are one of the other departments, and they are currently in the process. So that would leave 2, and I would prefer for us to not be the last man standing. For Pleasant Ridge to proceed with the membership process into the training consortium, they need a resolution. So that's why I'm here tonight. I can attempt to answer any questions that you may have about it, though.
Sure.
Question, Mayor? Sure.
Thank you, Sergeant Reed. Why have we not joined it sooner? Because it sounds like a great situation, you know.
Different cities have trickled in over the past few years. I just talked to Deputy Chief Crum from Berkeley. They just got into it this past year.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, and he said that, you know, he was the one that was like, hey, you guys need to get on this now, because their officers, you know, enjoyed it, and they show the benefits, I mean, instantly, $250 for a department is.
That's amazing. That's
Really
cool.
good.
That's like
Yeah.
grant based, so that they're getting support. Because that was one of my big questions, was the whole where are there costs for training? Additional costs for.
No, it's all included for our $250.
Wow.
So, yeah, they offset all of that through grants.
So Huntington Woods is moving. Who's the other?
We got to throw them out there, but
Yes, yeah.
Is Pontiac a member?
No.
they use the sheriff's department now. Lathrop Village is should be the last man standing. So.
And so you were saying there's no cross billing for cooperative work. Everyone just works together.
Right.
that's-
So if we were to have a critical incident, hopefully we never would have to. But
Right.
if we did, then we would get personnel. We could request personnel, resources, vehicles, whatever we needed. They have all kinds of stuff. They have 100 riot gear things ready to go. So they literally would bring trailers full of stuff for wherever we need to go.
And then they would come here when the water bills come out.
I don't know about that. You'll have to talk to the chief about that. So.
No, I did started reading. Definitely want to support. What your guys need. I guess and this is just my ignorance. What's the difference between participating in OTEC and like our current mutual assistance agreements? I mean,
the resources that they have, if we were to have something now, we would, call Royal Oak, Ferndale, the surrounding departments. They'll bring with whatever resources they can, but this is one where, luckily we haven't had to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last thing that I can remember was when Sergeant Bunting went to the Free Press riots. I think that was the last thing where we actually had to send people, not somewhere around the surrounding area.
Right.
And that was, you grab the riot equipment and you go. This one is they kind of bring the equipment to you and bring the resources to you. So.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, I think we're talking like 95.
Downtown?
No, over
Sterling
on, Sterling Heights. Is that on Mount
Van
Van
Dyke.
Dyke?
right.
Van Dyke and 16.
Mount Road, Mounted 16 Mile Road.
Got it.
16.
Yeah. So as I said, luckily we, don't have to go to those incidents too often. But
Well, and I guess that part of my thinking is this would be primarily when you describe critical incidents. That could be anything from some unrest
Riots,
to a
active shooters.
situation.
I mean, there's a number of things that we classify as critical incidents. A lot of their focus is on active shooter stuff. The chief and I actually just went to a conference, and the keynote speaker was from the lead investigator on Sandy Hook.
Okay.
So we learned some stuff from that too.
Right.
Once again, it's hopefully one of those things that we never ever have to deal with, but something that we prepare for. So.
My only question is, how soon can I vote yes?
In just a moment.
Okay.
In just a moment.
Can I make the motion first then, if we're ready?
I'm going to ask you to make a motion.
All right,
Sure.
great. Your Honor, I move that the resolution regarding the city's participation in the Oakland County Tactical Training Consortium, OCTAC, be approved immediately.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm not even going to ask for discussion. May we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Foreman?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Mayor Metzger?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank
This
you.
is great. This is great. Okay. Now, next item, dangerous animals ordinance discussion. Anybody want to discuss that? This is time for anybody with any further. We've discussed this in the past. We've had a town hall. We continue to discuss, and so this is. If there's any discussion from the floor or anybody here at the front table, anybody on commission, anybody.
Yeah, I would only say, if there was residents who
Okay.
wanted to speak on this issue.
Okay.
I guess I would also like to, advocate for at least a next step or a further step. I know the town hall, although sparsely attended, I guess is a good way to describe it. There was some constructive dialogue between, I know we had some electeds there, and we had staff and the residents were able, and Greg was there, thank you, and we were able to have a really kind of free-flowing discussion with the residents about worries, concerns, things other cities could do, things we already have on the books. I know there was a lot of enthusiasm at the meeting for the leash law enforcement, and Chief spoke to that earlier in the meeting. We don't really need to rehash that. I guess what I would be in support of is keeping the leash law prominent as far as our enforcement, but also looking into an ordinance that addresses potentially dangerous animals. I know Farmington Hills, Greg had presented an ordinance that Farmington Hills uses to tackle this very difficult idea of preventing something horrible from happening. I know we've had some discussions about how difficult it is to do that before the fact, determining what is a potentially dangerous animal, what is not a potentially dangerous animal. It's really hard to do. I was grateful for the Farmington Hills ordinance being presented to actually see another community who is attempting to do this, whether they've been able to successfully eliminate dog bites or dangerous animals from their community. I highly doubt it. I'm sure a lot of that still happens in their community. But I guess what I would ask the commission to do tonight is to at least support a movement to present an ordinance tailored to the city of Pleasant Ridge that we could vote on after a public hearing. And I don't know if there's any other discussion from my colleagues, but I would like to make a motion to that effect. I would like to make a motion that to instruct staff to develop a potentially dangerous animals ordinance for review by the city commission.
You're making that motion?
I'm making that motion.
Is there anyone who would second that motion?
I'll second it just so we can discuss it.
Okay. So, discussion.
Thank you for that explanation of your thoughts. And this is a challenging issue for me, not just because I have a dog, but because I can see both sides of it. I think a lot of this would be prevented, and we don't have exact evidence of this, but I would have to assume, maybe improperly, that many of these instances that have occurred over the 10 years we've been tracking them, or something to that effect, were loose dogs, improperly leashed dogs, or just dogs with the owner that were not on a leash at all. Probably not leashed dogs that were leashed close to the owner, most likely. So when I look at the leash law that we have today, it specifies a dog must be leashed in order to not be considered to be at large. However, it doesn't specify how long the leash must be. I could have a 30-foot leash and it really is doing me no good whatsoever. My dog can go bite anybody it wants on a really long leash. I have to try to reel it in quickly enough and it's not going to happen. A retractable leash is not going to help me. I need a leash that is, say, and I'm not the expert on this, but I'd say maybe 6 feet or something for me to be able to control that dog effectively. I need a short enough leash. Not where I'm choking the dog, but where the dog can't run out of my control. So I think that's something we need to look at first. If we are going to rely on our leash law and start enforcing it more strictly, we have to make sure that the leash law includes an appropriate provision to make sure that leash is even effective. So I would like us to examine adding something that would talk about leash length into the existing leash law. Now, as to additional ordinances, we haven't really had these, and to date, we don't have one today, that would try to identify a dangerous dog preventatively. It usually takes some sort of incident to call on some sort of expert to do a determination of the dog and see what happens from there. To think about that, to wait for an injury is certainly unsettling for me, but at the same time, to be able to predict the behavior of an animal, I don't think it's necessarily possible, just like we can't do that for a person. So I think if we're able to rely on the leash law that we have, and hopefully firm it up to where it actually makes it more effective because you can control the animal on a shorter leash. I'd like to look at that and examine how that goes in the next whatever period of time that is, I don't know. But just really assess that and see if that's enough, because today we haven't really been strictly enforcing that as we're talking about today. And my presumption is that these incidents maybe wouldn't have happened at all, however few incidents there were over the past however many years, they may not have happened at all had we been more strictly enforcing that, or had residents been reporting these infractions more. Now it's a hot issue, people are talking about it, and there's more awareness for sure. And there will be even more awareness. We're going to put notice in the Ridger, we're going to put notice at the dog park, I think at least one other area. So we're going to make sure people know about this. But again, I believe we need to make sure that that leash law that we're now more strictly enforcing is more effective, to where it's not just any leash, and it's not a leash that's made of a ribbon. It's a leash that could actually control that dog in some manner to prevent an injury to somebody or to another dog. So that's how I feel about it. I'd like to look at just strengthening the leash law to be more clear and specify some sort of maximum leash length, and leave it at that for now, and see where that takes us, and see if we have any problems from there. Because we really haven't been measuring it effectively if we haven't been strictly enforcing this leash law to date.
I guess if I could respond, Mayor. Okay. Thank you. No, I guess I would just say that the leash law is fundamental, and I'm not looking to substitute, any kind of future ordinance or potential ordinance for the leash law. I guess what I was looking for is something that residents can turn to if there's a recurring incident. And again, the thing that is appealing to me from the Farmington Hills example, though not perfect or not a perfect match for our situation here, is that it's not breed specific ban. It doesn't point, it doesn't unjustifiably single out a breed of dog. What it does is really highlight or bring attention to negligent owners. Where there's a recurring issue, it gives the city an opportunity to step in when there's a recurring situation with an animal, beyond just the leash or something on the sidewalk. But if there was a recurring concern from neighbors that one of their neighbors had an animal who they saw as a threat, again, it's a very slippery terrain. It's undeniable, and I'm not saying that this law or any law, is gonna protect everyone or identify perfectly, an animal that's gonna bite someone. But I think if there's something on the books that our manager, our city manager, our police chief can refer to if there's a recurring situation, that would be my preference, and that's why I would like to instruct staff just to bring us an ordinance for us to consider and approve or not approve, but at least have something that we can consider, have something the residents can look over and see if they're comfortable with it. So that's why I wanted to bring it before my colleagues under this agenda item.
Is there other discussion?
My comment is I haven't felt that there is an overwhelming problem, so I feel that we're preemptively trying to solve something that historically we really haven't felt any great impact from. I think residents, for the most part, you can control your dogs the best you can, but our residents seem to control them really well. I'm not hearing a lot of situations. There definitely one will crop up here and there, but it doesn't feel like it's an overwhelming problem that we need to have any stronger regulation. I think enforcing the leash law seems to address, I think, a couple of the major concerns that were brought up to us in the town hall, and that's always a good law, because just like any dog, no matter how well trained they are, no matter how good they are, sometimes squirrels are just a lot of fun, or another dog, or kids and stuff. So I like that we're stepping up the whole leash law impact, and we've seen residents really kicking into that already, and we haven't even put a real big push on it yet. So that's sort of my stance.
Yeah, I'll echo Commissioner Foreman's comments. I think the first step is to understand where we stand with the leash law. It may need tuning up a little bit to improve the length of the leash, as it is not specified today, to a length that can be controlled by the owner, and that might be a nice first step. I don't know that we have enough information to tell us that we have an issue on a larger scale that would require an additional ordinance at this time. It may be that we learn through the further enforcement of the leash ordinance that something else is needed, but we haven't collected enough information to really tell us that today. All that we know is that over a 10-year period, I think there were 9 incidents that were reported, and I don't know that any of them were repeat incidents, maybe 1 or 2. And so it doesn't necessarily suggest, based on past performance or past incidents, that we have a pet that repeats problems, lacking better wording. So we might find that we do after we help the residents become more comfortable with reporting incidents and feeling comfortable in raising issues as they come up. So I'd be less inclined to support an additional ordinance. Rather, we should look at the existing ordinance and tune it up if that's what's needed.
Chief, do you have some data?
I have a couple points to make. And Mr. Need, correct me if I'm wrong, but the existing dog laws that we've had and we've been enforcing have been in effect, I think, since 1919 or something like that. And there didn't seem to be a whole lot of issues. There was enforcement action when enforcement action was needed to be taken. When the whole dangerous dog thing and everything arose months or so ago, when one of the residents was concerned about a pit bull in her neighborhood and it was climbing a fence and got out of her, and that's what started this whole discussion. Then we decided that we were going to have a town hall and discuss it at meetings. And the consensus that I got, that I attended to at the town hall, was let's enforce the leash law better, even by the sparsely attended crowd that was there. That seemed to be the consensus. We had several ordinances in place, which included dogs running at large, which it addresses the leash law, barking, and vicious dogs, and dog license requirement. Some of those, like the vicious dog law, was rescinded when we went to the county for their enforcement, which now doesn't change. We still take the initial report, enforce, and then turn over something to the county, which we did. I think a lot of this is stemming from the recent incident that occurred, where a jogger from Ferndale was jogging around on the streets here in the area over here by Roosevelt School. I don't know the whole details. I read it, but it's unclear. I didn't talk to her. But I don't know if she startled the woman who had a dog on a leash of, according to her, sufficient strength to hold the dog, but whether she didn't see her, wasn't paying attention, everybody's on their, I don't know, on their phone, doing whatever. Even with a sufficient leash or length of leash, I don't know if that bite could have been prevented. And I don't know if we want to get into going around with a tape measure and measuring leashes either. Some different dogs require less of a leash than, so again, now you're breed specific, which we discussed earlier, you don't really want to get into. So I think getting the info out there, like we're doing with the Ridger, we discussed it here and at the meeting, and again brought up today for the meeting, and then the enforcement. Our officers are out there now. I'm keeping a file. When they see people, whether on the leash or not, they go, hey, good job, you know all the stuff going on. Keep doing what you're doing. If they don't, we've issued warnings, written warnings, which we document. And if somebody's repeat offender, then they're going to get a ticket. And that ticket is like $225 at the 45th District Court. One was written and one was paid already. So know that we're on it. We can see where we go with it. But we are covered by state law under the vicious dog statute that we can write on too. So I don't, if we need to enact another ordinance, when we can write it under state.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So.
my understanding, and Greg and Chief, is that that's an after the effect citation, or whereas I guess the Farmington Hills model is an attempt to be more preventative, if you could even be preventative in a situation like that. So yes, I think we do have coverage for situations with out of control dogs off the leash or fish or bites, to that extent. I guess the Farmington Hills idea is kind of getting out in front of some of that stuff, as difficult, admittedly, as it can be. So I guess I'm comfortable with what we have. I guess my request is, can we go a little bit farther as far as being preventative?
But I don't know if you take that next step from here, then what's the next step? Is a muzzle on a dog when you're required to have them out? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope that we're going to walk then.
Well, part of the Farmington Hills, as I read it, is that is one of the requirements if an animal is determined by this three-person panel, that one of the remedies is that animal out in public would then have to be muzzled. Again, that's not something we may or may not want to do here. I'm just looking for a course of action to correct behavior, not definitely in the dog, but also in the owner. So that was my read on this and kind of my curiosity on this. Yes, I understand we have some stuff right now that we can address and see how that plays out. But I was looking to be a little more preventative on this.
Thank you, Chief.
Nothing else. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could make another comment on it. So this is a difficult conversation to have and a difficult thing to conceive is legislating this type of thing, predictive behavior. Obviously I want to prevent accidents. So if there's a car that could hit me because I'm walking in the street, I think it's a sensible thing to have a sidewalk so people are on the sidewalk. But I still can't prevent a car from leaping over the curb and hitting me. So there's a certain amount of risk that I have to accept, even being outside my house. With the dog, for example, that's a little bit different because a car leaping over the curb because a guy had a heart attack or something, that's kind of an accident. It's an accident. A dog biting somebody is a behavior that's induced by a certain set of factors. It's not an accident, I don't think. Something caused the dog to do it and it just happened due to behavior. I don't think we can prevent behavior before it happens. It's really difficult for me to wrap my head around how we could do that. I understand there are precautions. If people file a complaint, there's this review board. I just don't feel comfortable with the city being in that role of reviewing a dog's behavior to say whether or not this thing's dangerous. I don't think that's our place. Yes, I want to keep people safe, but I don't think we have the capacity to keep people safe in that way, to intervene in someone's life and determine whether or not their dog is dangerous. And if we do that, we say the dog is not dangerous, then it goes and bites somebody. It's like, oh, well, the city said the dog wasn't dangerous, so let's go sue the city for that. And I know, Greg, you said at the town hall that really a city cannot be held responsible for that type of thing, but I believe that doesn't stop someone from attempting to sue the city, which could incur legal defense fees just to get the case dismissed or what have you, right?
That's true. Nothing, anybody that has the money can file a lawsuit, but the city is protected from that kind of a negligent enforcement claim. But you're correct, there would be defense costs.
So to me, that puts the city in a place that I don't want to see us. I'd be very uncomfortable with Pleasant Ridge being that position of determining whether or not someone's animal is dangerous, because it's just not our area of expertise. Yes, there could be one behavioral expert, but then there have to be other people on the panel. Who are they? And then really, who trusts their authority to that degree that they can necessarily make this decree that this is how this dog is and this will stand? Because we cannot control the dog's behavior. We can say it's safe, but tomorrow it may not be safe. Because we don't know what situation will bring out a certain behavior. We don't know that that'll happen or not. We cannot control it. It's random many times. So again, that's why I feel this way about it, is I'm very uncomfortable trying to get in there and prevent something before it will happen, and when it comes to a living being's behavior, I don't think we can do it. That's all.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I just agree with Commissioner Foreman's comments. I don't know that we have any information to tell us that the Farmington Hills approach is actually effective, and that we have any ability to predict an animal's behavior based on even using an expert have the ability to predict an animal's behavior. And as a result, it puts the city in an awkward position of responsibility for determining that animal's behavior, and I don't see it working.
Yeah, I would just say to this point, and is that I'm not asking us to get inside the mind of a dog or, see life through a vicious dog's eyes. What I'm saying is, if there's demonstrably things that are contributing to the sense that the neighbors feel unsafe, the city should have the power to step in and go, yes, this dog needs to be muzzled, or yes, this dog needs to have a pen, or your fence has to be, of a certain strength. So yes, I mean, getting into the psychology of which animal is more likely to cause harm to a human being, believe me, I get that, but I'm just looking for a step that the city can address if there is demonstrably something that the owners are not doing to control their animal. That's where I'm searching.
Can I ask you for clarification? So what would be an example of a behavior that would cause someone, not who was bitten, they weren't bitten, what is an example of a behavior, a couple examples that would warrant a call to the city and an intervention from the city in your mind? What could a dog do that would prompt that isn't a bite?
That you can predict.
I would say if an animal is continuously escaping from an area, a backyard, and the owner is not taking responsibility for keeping that animal contained, then that would be a situation where I would expect the city to step in and say, why is this dog,
So not to challenge, but that situation right now is already enforceable. Because if the dog leaves your property, you get a ticket.
And after several $200 infractions, the lesson will be learned.
We hope, I guess. We hope. So the question I would have about that scenario is, Jim or Scott, if somebody's dog escaped repeatedly and they got repeated tickets, is it just a constant stream of the same ticket, or is there anything else that can happen after that? $200, over and over and over, 100 times this dog escapes and they're ticketed. Is there any further correction to the behavior?
Not likely.
Okay.
Not unless a dog attacks someone or does something.
Okay.
The Michigan State has a law, an animal legal historical center that has a lot of information on what is a dangerous dog, and there's some education things that we could put out there that people could do and try to adhere to. Signs that they could see if a dog is in a stressful situation. If you go onto a property, the dog's property, and he feels threatened, if he's cornered, if someone says, oh, you probably shouldn't pet my dog, and the kid does it anyway. There's a lot of education things that I'd be happy to put up on the website to try to educate people about animal and their behavior about their territory, because a dog is a territorial animal that protects its space, and in the Michigan Dangerous Animal Act of 1988 says that it's not considered a dangerous animal if you go on the person's property and the dog bites you. He's protecting his domicile, and there would be nothing against the dog or the owner if that were to happen. So I think it's education for people to know about how a dog acts and some of their natural instincts. So I'd be happy to put those things up there.
However this vote goes, if we could just please do that, I think it'd be helpful either way.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Are you ready to call for a vote?
Yeah. Commissioner Krzyjak?
Yes.
Commissioner Foreman?
No.
Commissioner Perry?
No.
Commissioner Scott?
No.
Mayor Metzger?
No. Fails. The next item is resolution regarding the I-75 expansion project.
Just by way of brief introduction, this is an item that Mayor Metzger and Commissioner Perry requested be on the agenda. This is a version of a resolution that has been passed by Ferndale and Royal Oak. Similar resolutions are being considered by other communities. Royal Oak obviously is directly affected by the I-75 expansion project. Ferndale is indirectly impacted. I think Berkeley is considering the resolution. So even cities that aren't necessarily, the I-75 doesn't pass through directly, still have interest in this. And so for that reason, I think Mayor Metzger and Commissioner Perry wanted us to consider a resolution. This is one that's before you, is one that I put together using Ferndale and Royal Oak as a model, taking out what was obviously specific to them, but that's where we're at. So I turn it over to you.
Yeah, just appreciate you putting together the resolution. I mean, it came to our attention because of the discussion around expansion of both I-75 and I-94 at an expense of some $4 billion, I believe it is, where we have a state that has one of the worst public transportation systems, the worst roads, the worst bridges. I mean, we fail on everything, and yet the whole idea of, is it economic development or is it sprawl? And the idea that adding a lane doesn't, even if it's an HOV lane when 93% of this region's drivers drive to work alone in a car, you're not going to change that. You're just going to have 5 lanes of bumper to bumper traffic instead of 4 lanes. And it's not going to help economic development whatsoever, and it certainly isn't going to help anybody in the south end. We feel that the money would be much better spent on fixing what we've got. It's this whole, we've just heard about lead pipes in Flint and this really decrepit infrastructure, the old aging infrastructure that we have in this state, much less Midwest states as a whole. We have this infrastructure that needs a tremendous amount of investment. What we've got already, we don't need to add additional lanes. We can obviously put the money into fixing some of the bridges and maybe changing exit ramps or something at Long Lake Road if that's what you want to do, and do some of those kinds of things, but which is a safety issue as much as anything else. I-94 needs some work, granted, but there's a lot of people in the community about what's happening in I-94. There's a lot of discussions around I-375 is to actually, pave over it so that you can actually connect, and you're seeing more and more of that where they're paving over expressways that have been dividing cities and that were basically destroyed minority communities over time. And so this whole idea of always expanding expressways is the answer to our problems when we really should be investing in transit and existing infrastructure. So we felt very strongly that even if Pleasant Ridge wasn't affected, we should stand with our neighboring communities and have a point of view, and I think it's very important that we do that. And so that was why I wanted to do it, and obviously Ann and I have worked a lot around transit issues, and certainly are hoping, we'll work hard that there be a positive vote in November when there is a transit tax put on the ballot. So that's.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know you guys have brought up, and former planning commissioner Mike DeCoster actually alerted me and requested it as well. And he was talking about that this is really a 40-year-old model, the expansion of 75, and that really doesn't benefit where we are now. And it's been a model that's been disproven. And, and putting, as you said, putting the funding into the local roads, of improving and repairing the infrastructure, as well as looking at better transit modes, as well as better streets and connecting the cities again with all the walkable, bikeable types of solutions as well. But so thank you, and thanks for the work you guys did on that.
And I for me, putting together the resolution, I think the important thing is there's a solid body of evidence, a solid body of research-backed evidence that shows a lot of times road expansion projects are sold on either economic development or traffic congestion calming, but studies going back to the 60s have proven that it doesn't improve congestion. Traffic acts like a gas. It fills the available space, so you just end up with more cars and the same amount of congestion after you do the road expansion project. Economic development, studies have shown that it doesn't actually generate any net economic development within a region. What it does is it moves around where economic development goes. So it incentivizes disinvestment in certain in older areas and investment in new places, but the net gain is not there. So I mean, these are research-backed conclusions. And one of my favorite quotes is from the 50s. But trying to solve traffic congestion by adding lanes is like trying to solve obesity by loosening your belt.
There you go.
And it just it's not the answer to the problem. The answer is a whole other conversation entirely, but if you want to talk about squandering resources, highway expansion projects such as this one are pretty well shown to be underperforming versus the promises that are made when they're done. So
The great thing about our resolution, it also gives reading material, so it gives background and some research.
Yes, thank you.
And you know, and the one when I do presentations about this region, there's a chart that shows we are the most job sprawled region in the country. 77+% of our jobs are 10 or more miles from the center city, which is much more than any other region in the country, and well above the 100, the average for the 100 largest metropolitan areas. And that would be okay if we had transit, so that people could get there when, only 26% of Detroit jobs are held by Detroiters. So they got to go someplace, it just doesn't make any sense. And so it's just continuing this, as Ann is saying, the 40-year-old model, this model that shows the Detroit metropolitan area falling behind farther and farther and farther, and the answer is not. Let's just add more cement. Let's start talking about the whole idea, what are people looking for in regions when they're moving, and what young people are looking for, and what this region needs. And it's multimodal transit, so.
Yeah, $4 billion investment in quality of life would be a far better
There you
investment.
go. I think so. I think it would reap.
Yes.
Yes. So that's what we did. So we're asking for a motion to approve the resolution.
Your Honor, I move, any other discussion, sorry, or Mayor? Can I ask
Sure.
for?
Yeah.
Okay, Your Honor, I move that the resolution regarding the I-75 expansion project be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay. May we have a vote?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott?
Yes.
Commissioner Foreman?
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak?
Yes.
Mayor Metzger?
Yes. Motion carries.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. If
Yes.
I could ask you to indulge me in a slight breach of meeting etiquette.
Of course.
If I could revisit item 17, there's something that I neglected to mention in there.
The dogs?
The dog stuff.
Yeah.
First, I wanted to clarify something that came out of the town hall, and I lost this one in that conversation. But since the town hall, I asked, I think it was Scott, is it okay for a dog to be unleashed when on your own property, on the front lawn, not fenced in? And the answer I got was yes. As long as it's on your property, it's okay.
Yes.
So if that's the case, I want to make sure it's clear to everyone.
Yeah, as long as it's on your property and it's in what they would consider a secured location, which anywhere on your property would be not a fence. Anywhere on your property line would be considered what the law says is a secured location.
So sitting on my front lawn. So
that's on your property line. That is okay. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And the other item was I wanted to request a motion or suggest a motion to direct staff to investigate options for leash length provisions if there are such things. Is this something that is commonly done, and is there any way that we could feasibly enforce this? Because I think that would be a critical component. If you have a leash that's so long that it's unmanageable, it's essentially very little or no benefit. So that's the motion I would like to make, is direct staff to just look into that and present some information to us perhaps at the next meeting.
Yeah, I thought a good point was made by the chief too. So.
Yeah.
How do you
Tape measures and all that, but is there some feasible way that we could add that in there? Because without it, it seems like it's of less value to me.
Are you making a motion?
That's my motion.
Okay. I'll second.
Thank you.
For discussion.
Any discussion?
No.
No.
I guess my comment would be, are there other areas in the existing leash ordinance that we would edit beyond leash length that might require some discussion? So do we want to limit it strictly to this particular suggestion, or broaden the discussion to something more?
I'd be okay with amending it to include more if we believe there's any more.
The existing section is very short. I mean, I can even read it. It shall be unlawful for any person to suffer, cause, or permit any dog owned or possessed, kept or harbored by him to run at large. Any dog not kept upon or within the limits of the premises of the owner or possessor of the dog shall be deemed to be running at large unless the dog is securely held upon a leash of sufficient strength to hold the dog, or in an enclosed automobile or other vehicle or shipping receptacle.
So we mentioned strength of leash.
Correct.
But not any kind of length of
There's
leash.
nothing on that.
Yeah.
No, it's just a leash of sufficient strength to hold the dog.
So that's the deficiency I see, but I'd be open if we find other deficiencies to look into those as well.
And we can certainly look at what other communities do in their running at large ordinances.
Yep.
and bring those back.
Any changes to any of those have to be approved by the county also, because they are animal control department. So we have to get a okay from them that a leash length would be okay to add to the ordinance, because it's something that they don't currently enforce and it's not currently in the dog law. So it would have to be something that would be okayed by animal control also, just so you know.
So it's a further comment. So even if it were to come out that this is not something that's feasible to enforce, that would be a fine result. If we did come to that determination, I would just like to maybe do a little research to see if it's even feasible for us. Thank you.
So the motion is?
Direct staff to look more closely at our existing leash law and look for areas to improve it, specifically with focus on leash length, but not limited to that. And to come to the next meeting with options on whether or not this is feasible for us to enforce or implement.
And that's what you're second then?
Yes, I'll second
Okay,
that.
I'll second that. All right. Okay, we'll take a vote.
Commissioner Foreman,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Kuziak,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
Yes.
Mayor Metzger.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. The next item is presentation regarding the community survey results. I'm going to, this was my big moment. I've never gotten to handle the PowerPoint, you know,
Oh boy.
but you know, it is 10:15. Huh? Nobody, well, that's right, nobody's watching and you don't want to see it, right?
No, we want to see it.
Do you want to see it?
We wanna
Okay,
see
I can be really
We
quick.
want to see it.
No,
Okay,
Mayor, we want to
you know-
see it.
All right, all right.
You want to push it to another month, or?
Nah, we'll do it.
Okay.
Okay, give me 5
Here's-
minutes.
spend a lot
I'll
of
do
time
it
on
quick.
this.
No, don't do
I'm
it.
looking at my wife. She's going.
Do it justice,
I
Kurt.
don't know.
Do it justice.
All
People
right.
can watch online.
There. Okay. So I wanted, first of all, again, to thank the 308 respondents that we had. We conducted the survey during the month of January, and it was really the first time. This is a survey that we hope to conduct every year or every 2 years to kind of gauge the opinions, to see how things are changing. Although we did so well, we probably don't want to ask again, because all we can do is go down, I think, in terms of, you know, we had an overall 99% response of being either very satisfied with living as a place, Pleasant Ridge as a place to live. 72% said they were very satisfied, 27% said they were satisfied, 99% total, so it was pretty good. It's tough to beat those. So we have all the results on the website. I've also written kind of a 6-page summary of the results, and so I'll just add to that just a few slides, and then we will add that to the overall presentation. So just to talk about quickly who responded, what I found was, you know, we asked for obviously the householder or somebody, an adult in the household. We had a couple people who were between 18 and 24 years of age, so they kind of fell out. So I looked at the percentage of respondents in each one of these age categories and compared them to the latest census results from 2014. And amazingly enough, you can see that we tracked quite well with the census. In fact, our survey, right, for 25 to 34-year-olds, 35 to 44-year-olds, very close. A little bit higher on our survey for the 45 to 54-year-old group, a little bit higher on 55 to 64, and a little bit lower on 65 and over, but really very closely overall, which surprised me actually. So it was great to see that we were so close to that. In terms of years residing in Pleasant Ridge, and I think this is also indicative of the community as a whole. I mean, first of all, to see that the major group was those who have lived here 20 plus years. When you look at the data from a census, you find that the majority of people who have lived here 20 plus years. And it's wonderful to see that even after 20 plus years, they're very much engaged in responding to a survey, that they want to have their opinions recorded, and they want to participate, and so that's very good to see. I'd like to see the numbers on the low end get much higher, get the newer residents. We want to hear what they have to say. But again, this pretty clearly covers the general pattern of residents in the city. this was interesting looking at children attending school. I don't think it was a big surprise. We didn't have that many households that responded in terms of having children out of the percentage of the whole set. But of those who did, 28% attended Ferndale Public Schools, 28 other public school districts, primarily Berkeley and Royal Oak. And then you had 42% attending private or parochial schools. Shrine, showed up a lot, Marion, U of D, the typical, we saw Roper, Country Day, but primarily it was parochial schools in the general area, both elementary and high schools. We also asked a question about what were your major reasons for moving, and I don't have it on the slide, but the people who moved here, they moved primarily for walkable neighborhoods, which was always good to hear, for the geographic location, and for the architectural character of the community. We also asked, are you thinking about moving in the next few years? And while we thankfully didn't have a lot of people who were thinking about moving, those who did say that they were looking at that, the major reason was downsizing or looking for some kind of senior housing. That whole need for a ranch. Nobody can find the ranch. Nobody can find a senior type living, which is always one of those demands. In fact, that was always the idea at the dog park. We would have senior housing. That is off the table. Please don't come back with that. So that was one of the main reasons. Some people said because of schools, and others said because of property taxes. The typical kinds of things. How would you rate the condition of various things? I thought it would show up better, but your street, and we've got the blue represents excellent, the orange is good, the brownish is fair, and then the yellow is poor. So if you look at your street, it's kind of like everything's local, right? People always think more highly of their elected representative, and then as you get farther away, they think less of it. So we think very highly of our streets. 57% said they were excellent, and 35% that said that they were good. When they talked about streets across the city, you still had a fairly good turnout, but it dropped down to 20%, 26% excellent, 65% good. When we looked at street sidewalks, that people felt a little bit better, obviously much lower in terms of excellent overall, but much better for their street sidewalks than sidewalks throughout the city. Probably the last slide when I show you who responded, maybe that'll be. Those streets with newer sidewalks tended to respond at higher rates. But you can see that obviously sidewalks is an issue. It's one of our goals and objectives. It's one of our main points that we want to make sure that we continue the sidewalk program that we started this past year and that we ratcheted up coming in the next year. Please rate your contact over the past year with following city departments. This is always nice to see. The people are generally happy. This was only based on those who had interactions, and that varied again across the various departments. So not that many people dealt with the water department or the building department, but of those who did, they felt pretty good about it. City clerk wins. Yes.
Your survey should just put Amy's name.
No, that's right. City clerk. Everybody loves the city clerk, and we're going to find those 4% who don't.
Yeah.
We're going to find out what Amy did to those 4%. Police, again, 96%. We're satisfied or very satisfied, and recreation 96%. So you can't get much better than that. There's always some disgruntled resident, right? Somebody's going to have an axe to grind. Fire EMS 94%. The building department 90%. Now the city manager is a whole different thing. He's going to be having to talk with the city clerk and learn how to raise his numbers. He's always got to be the one that.
Whenever you have to say no to somebody, she always forwards it to my phone.
There you go. Okay. So now we know. Let's see if we switch it. What'll happen next year? The water department 87% and Brylar 85%. Of course, that's because people's leaves didn't get picked up, or they didn't feel their snow was properly, or that snow got put in front of their driveway. That always gets people a little bit upset. So. The The biggest issues facing the city, interesting, careless driving and speeding. We hear that, we yell at, well, we don't yell at people anymore. We now wave at them as they're driving quickly, and then they just kind of slow down because they don't know what the heck is going on. Do we know those people? And then we even had one guy stop and say, I was only going 20 miles an hour. We know that wasn't true. That was when he was coming to a stop. Cost of public services was another issue. I mean, these were not drastically high numbers identifying these as issues. Crime, property maintenance, upkeep, other, which was a long list that you can read online. And then issues about too few recreational indoor programs and outdoor programs. Not exactly, so the issues weren't that big. If you had $100 to spend, I guess we gave them 100 points, but if we always talk about $100 to spend on city services, where would you put them? It was interesting, this was the average of those who actually allocated dollars to any one of these things. So of all the people who allocated dollars to the independent PR police, $21. Way far and away the rest. There wasn't much differentiation among the rest, but that really did support previous surveys where people would do anything they could. They would pay extra taxes to maintain an independent police. That was part of some of the tactics in past elections, that we were going to get rid of our police department, and that's never been the case. That is something that we value very highly, the citizens value very highly, and is not going to change. And then you see from then on, everybody kind of, sidewalk maintenance obviously is the next highest, park maintenance, street repair and maintenance. So issues around maintenance, very important, and we've talked about that with the whole Gainsborough Park redo, that maintenance has to be an important component of that. The issues around maintenance, both at the city level as well as code enforcement and people maintaining their own properties as well. So you can see those. And this is something I wanted to do. So we knew everybody had to list their street. And we first had the number of responses from each street, but we decided, well, even knowing full well that people, more than one adult in a household could respond, it wasn't limited to one adult. And we knew that some homes are vacant and have been vacant for a long time by choice of the owners. We did a calculation on kind of a market share, the number of responses based on the number of actual homes on that, or the actual number of properties. So it was a density of responses per properties, and the winner was Kenverton. Wow. At 47 with their new sidewalks. So they won, they came in first, and Woodside Park came in last, and you can definitely look at the charts across the board. It was a very great response. It was interesting, you look at the streets at the bottom, and you might want to start to talk to those people and find out why less engagement there, but we got a good representation across the city in most cases, and just want to thank the citizens, and also just to mention that those open-ended questions, we have a tremendous amount of information of people, issues around recreation, issues around city services, around other kinds of things that we will be looking at, and also will inform some of the work that we're doing going forward. So thanks again to the residents, and this will be on the web in addition to the write-up, in addition to the details. So
already is right on the homepage.
All right, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
So there it was.
That was great. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. There won't be any discussion, or we don't have to vote on it. So the next item is city manager's report. We're almost there.
I'd like to report it's 10:30. I have nothing further.
Oh my God.
That
was scary. I will.
That was funny.
I just have a question for the city manager. If you could give us a quick update on the Four Ridge roof work, when would we expect that to begin?
Just waiting for weather. They need a certain amount of dry days. It's I don't know, I don't want to say comical, but Scott and I get weekly weather reports from the contractor.
It's comical.
Yeah. Just with what we're looking at. So it needs to be a certain temperature, days consistently above 50 degrees, and dry. And as you know, we haven't gotten there yet.
Probably
So-
the next 3 to 4 weeks.
I would
somewhere.
think so, yep.
Okay.
Hopeful.
Last item, if we're in other business now, Mayor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to draw your attention, whoever may be still awake or watching, there was a bobcat sighting in the city of Pleasant Ridge. It was reported on Facebook. So a photo was captured, and this is apparently what it looks like. It's a very rare breed of bobcat, apparently. This was submitted by resident Jason Bandy. He apparently got the photo. I've never seen an animal like that before, but it really is something to look at. So just want to make sure everyone was aware. Keep your eyes open.
I actually believed him.
It's hard to follow that with any other
First.
person.
I didn't know what to say.
Is that bobcat on a leash?
This is wild.
Yeah.
It can't be controlled. It's wild.
We were talking dangerous animals.
Yes.
How long is that leash?
Dangerous.
That's it. Thank you.
Yes.
Just real quick, the book club title is My Life on the Road by Gloria Steinem. We'll be discussing it Monday, March 28th at 7 p.m. Obviously, she's been very influential, an icon in the feminist movement, and this will be a discussion of her travels and a discussion of the fundamental importance that she puts on traveling and seeing different cultures and talking to other people. So hopefully that'll spur a discussion of other people's experiences with travel. If you're interested, please join us on Monday, March 28th at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Just a quick one, I neglected to mention the next Historical Commission meeting is on April 6th at 7 p.m. at Fort Ridge. Feel free to join.
I'm good. Thanks. One more plug for the spring musical, and I also had one data thing to end this long meeting, just because I can. Just wanted to recognize the tremendous turnout at the primary election. City came out at about 54%. For the primary, yeah, 54%. We still lost to Huntington Woods. It came out at around 59, but I do want to make this point and try to see if that can put us over the top. City of Pleasant Ridge has about 2,000 people 18 and over in their population, and yet our number of registered voters is over 2,300. So there's some kind of mix. We got 300 more registered voters than we actually have people 18 and over in the community. So obviously our turnout numbers are depressed because of that. So I'm just going to assume that if we take a certain amount of that off the top, we'll move our turnouts to at least 60%, and we will surpass Huntington Woods. So
Yay!
It's official. It's official, we win.
Yay.
So Huntington Woods, come back. But it was a great turnout, and interesting results that were reported on Facebook, if nowhere else. Certainly you can read about. So, any other?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
any of us at the table recall when we scheduled the next coffee? Is it coming up
It's
Coming
next
up.
week.
Yeah.
next Tuesday?
Yes.
I'll tell you.
I believe it's
on the
next.
Can't find
I
it in
believe
my
it's next
calendar.
Tuesday.
It's
Yeah.
on the calendar.
At 7 p.m.?
22nd. Yeah. 7
Okay.
p.m.
So our next coffee is coming Tuesday at 7 p.m. and it will be at Fort Ridge.
Fort Ridge.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Okay. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. So,
With a side.
all in favor?
All right.
All right. We are adjourned.